Plus Savings Bank, you still get personalized customer service.
We have identity safe checking with LifeLock, identity theft protection.
You get personal mortgage lending to fit your needs now and in the future.
You get business banking with the latest technology because saving you time saves you money.
At Council Bluffs Savings Bank, you get people who answer when you call and local employees who are actively involved in our community. Council Bluffs Savings Bank, hometown banking the way it used to be.
We're trying to get organized. If everyone please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order and would entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the clarification that the building height was in concurrence with Planning Commission, not Community Development.
Second.
And I'd like to make an amendment. Did we want to rearrange the
Make a
agenda
motion to do.
and move? See, which items are those, Mr. Mayor?
5A would move ahead of 4F. Yep. Can you do it after 4D, because then those are all successive?
Yeah.
That's my motion.
All right.
Second.
So we have a motion to amend the minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And then motion to amend the agenda to read ordinance for second consideration 5A prior to 4E and F. Any discussion on that? And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. And now, can I get it? Do we have a motion on the consent agenda already? And so any discussion on approval of the consent agenda as amended? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public hearings, this is the time and place for a public hearing as advertised on the matter of Resolution 14-314, vacating and disposing of part of Cassidy Street between Fleming Avenue and Yonkerman Street, and to vacate and dispose of the east-west alley in Block 3, Minster's Benton Street addition. Is proof of publication on file?
It is on file.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Are there any oral protests of this matter? Anyone who wishes to speak against? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This is time and place for a public hearing as advertised on the matter of Resolution 14-315, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a quitclaim deed and any documents necessary to transfer the interest in city property at 2510 Pavich Drive. Is proof of publication on file?
It is on file.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Are there any oral protests of this matter? Anyone wishing to speak against? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor? Seeing none, the council's pleasure.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This is time and place for a public hearing as advertised on the matter of Resolution 14-316, granting final plat approval for a minor subdivision, creating two lots to be known as South 24th and Highway 275 Industrial. It is proof of publication on file.
It is on file.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Are there any oral protests of this matter? Anyone wishing to speak against? If you come to the microphone and give your name and address for the record, please. And as we move along tonight, I just want to set the ground rules because there are so many people. A lot of times we've given a little latitude to go over 10 minutes. The council rules are 10 minutes, and so tonight I'm going to hold you to 10 minutes just so that we can get people that want to speak up here to speak. So, and name and address for the record, please.
Patty Gray Lyons, 3603 Katy Drive. I'm a member of the Twin City Neighborhood Association, and part of this ties in to do with the rezoning. Part of it's a height requirement. If it's okay, I'd like
Sure.
to kind of
You bet.
address it all at once. One of the things that was brought up at our last meeting, last Wednesday, was one of the traffic concerns. And the company, the Shemer company that's doing all these studies, presented a traffic study. However, I have some concerns because on it, it even says they've based it on assumptions and that they've done it within what they consider peak traffic hours. And I don't know what time or what day it was, but I just drove through there just over the weekend, and just while I was waiting at the light, I counted approximately 35 cars and trucks going through the northbound and westbound lanes at 8 o'clock at night. If we're looking at peak travel hours, they're only reporting approximately 13 vehicles in each direction. So just my number sitting at a traffic light is much higher than what they're reporting within an hour's time with a conservative assumption. So I'm requesting that maybe we do a current traffic study and we look at the actual impact of what that will be to the neighborhood traffic in that area. And also I think that the council should take into consideration, we have those two businesses going in, we have the concrete company as well as the electrical. We need to look at what additional traffic they'll also be bringing through to the area. And I would also like, maybe that we should set some peak, how they have their peak hours, that maybe we should reduce their movements during what would be our rush hour times. Between the 7 and 9 o'clock hour, we have a lot of LC students driving to and from the trailer parks and from the Twin City and Malmar areas that will be going through those intersections. We have lots of Creft parents already giving their children rides that choose not to bus. That's already a traffic problem coming in and out of Twin City, where we've had the police down there many times helping to monitor traffic and move it along. And then also we'll have that additional, just the regular bus traffic for those who do choose to ride the bus to and from traffic. In addition to the FedEx trucks, which if they expand anymore, that will also increase our traffic. And I know I, for one, on a frequent, regular basis, am kind of fighting the traffic trucks, or the FedEx trucks, so to speak, to the main stoplight to get on the interstate to go to work in the mornings. Also, if they're going to be working 24/7 as it is projected, what about the additional traffic that's brought in from the soccer tournaments and the baseball tournaments and the football tournaments? There's a whole lot of other traffic there, and we're talking semis. They already, kind of invade the Twin City neighborhood, which we welcome them. It brings revenue to the city. They already fill up most of the JCPenney's parking lots. It's like that's a lot of additional traffic coming to and from Nebraska, or people that are just maybe lost and don't even know where they go. I live on a cul-de-sac, and I don't know how many traffic people or how many cars we've seen up and down our road. And so that is my study as far as concerning the traffic.
Can you answer a quick question for me?
Sure.
Just because I think people may be confused. They estimated 35 cars, and you said there was 13 in each direction. So is that 26 cars? Is that a comparison of 35 to 26, or are they 35
I have
each way?
35 and they have 13
20.
each way.
So if you got
Approximately
35, do they have 26, I guess is what I'm trying to
They
find out.
have 19 in one location and 13 in the other for the ways that I was facing.
Okay, so it,
It's a big difference.
So I think we might need to do a more recent traffic study. And also with, I don't know when this traffic study was done, but since the whole Target area has been built up, I know we have a lot more traffic going there to and from Omaha, South Omaha Bridge, or the interstate being the main ways. If they're coming South Omaha Bridge, if they know the back roads, we'll have that additional traffic as well.
okay.
Also, for the projections, I believe that they said we'll be getting $250,000 for 10 years, which a lot of us at the meeting were like, ooh, that sounded like a lot of money. But when you think about it, that's only approximately $250,000 that they will be giving to us for the first 10 years, from my understanding from the meeting. I just did a few scans real quick in the nonpareil, and basically, to do the project landing at the pedestrian bridge, that cost was $800,000, and that's just for that small landing. We would basically have to bank their money for a little over 3 years to be able to even be able to redo a little landing project. So while it is bringing business into the city, at what cost is it bringing business? Because it's like that's not a lot of revenue for what we can do with that amount of money. I don't know if there could be, maybe if they could give more over each year instead of just that $250,000, because I think for our property values going down, the increase in the wear and tear on the roads, which from my understanding in our city, that's also going to take out of our city budget. Out of that $250,000 that we're getting the first few years, what are we really going to be able to do with that? Are we going to build another little project landing in some other park somewhere? Or what exactly will that tax money be going for? And also on that note, as we're talking about revenue, It will probably increase the property values. It's a lot of the predictions from the Twin City neighborhoods. So therefore, that would be less tax revenue, less property taxes for the city. So again, we have to look at that impact of that $250,000. Also, I know that they're working on developing the Marketplace Plaza, the JCPenney's areas. That is already 50% empty, and they've had so much trouble filling the stores. What stores are going to come in knowing, oh, we're at the edge of an industrial area? Industrial areas typically do not bring in a lot of families, a lot of people. It's like, oh, let's open up a store next to a place run by robots, place run by robots that aren't even obviously going to buy anything. So why would they even want to fill in there? Why would stores want to go to that JCPenney area? And also, I'm concerned about the height. I did a little bit of research. I found 2 different reports on basically the Edward Scissorhands statues that are on top of the interstate. That from the base to the top, in one article I saw, was 75 feet. In another spot, it said it was 100 feet. The building size that they're talking about building about would be 2 times to 1.5 times of that Edward Scissorhands from the base of the ground to the tip. And do we want to put something that big on that corner? And I almost wonder if they could expand width-wise, because I know there's the ordinance where they have to build so many feet back for so much height. Would it be possible for them to possibly expand wider and maybe not have to build so far back and still retain some of that square footage, and then we wouldn't have this humongous skyscraper compared to the Edward Scissorhands statue as we're driving down the street next to all this farmland and housing. And I guess my last comment was as far as giving, because I've been told it's kind of a done deal. I understand this is a second reading. The third one will be next month. With some of that money, since they are kind of coming into the Twin City and the Lewis Central districts, shouldn't some of that money be used to improve the Twin City sewer systems? We already have flooding in the Brown apartments that are right across the street from Kraft. I live on Katy Drive on the back side of Kraft. I know we get water all the time up past our curbs. Kraft has it as well. Our neighbor even puts a little pipe in from his backyard and drains part of the Kraft playground into the street and into the city waters because the flooding is such a problem that the kids couldn't even play on the playground sometimes. And so I think that some of this $250,000, while it's kind of a small amount based on everything that it could be bringing in, should be used towards the Twin City systems. And also, since they are near the LC district, they will be real close neighbors to Kraft, that they should maybe embrace becoming some type of adopt-a-school partner, maybe set up some type of robotics programs, or maybe consider doing something with that with the Lewis Central District. It's like these kids have these machines and this robots in the backyard. Why should we not be teaching them about it? And why shouldn't that company take some of their time and their investments to work with the local people? And I guess I did have one other thing. My other concern is there's only 50 employees that's going to be at this company. I mean, that's about the size of a McDonald's. That's all the people that they are hiring. And we don't even know for certain how many of those are going to be local people. Are they moving people here? Are they going to be giving jobs to the local community? And I know he had mentioned, there's going to be janitors and some of the laborers, but I think we should look at and request that most of the employees come from our general metropolitan area. And that is all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll be back in January.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you. You had some really great ideas, though, by the way, so thank you for that.
Anybody else wishing to speak against? Anybody here wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening. My name is Charlie Huddleston. I'm with the Shimmer Associates. We're located at 928 Valley View Road here in Council Bluffs. We're here representing XTL, which is a company that wishes your favorable consideration for zoning, platting, a text amendment on height, and a later consideration regarding TIF funding. Here tonight, we have Mr. Anthony Cerrone, who's president of XTL. We have Kenneth Garrett, who is the chief financial officer of XTL. And we have Keith Hawks, who's the chief operations manager. He's the key technical guy. They're here to answer any questions that you would have that I can't address. What I'd like to do is just quickly review the process that we've gone through to get to this point. There's really essentially 3 phases. We did a, a study prior to obtaining an option on the land that involved evaluation of zoning, existing conditions, and so forth. A lot of different parameters that were facing the project site and compared those to the company's desires. Once we were able to obtain an option for the land, which the company currently has and would like to exercise, we were able to get in there and do surveys, wetland studies, geotechnical investigations, and so forth. The third phase was once we got through that study, we determined it was a feasible site. It's an excellent site for what the company would like to do, and we had to massage all of the parameters with the requirements of the company. So it was an iterative process where we went through different scenarios. We looked at several different site plans, we looked at several different building configurations, and what you have before you is really what I would consider to be the optimum design based on the financial constraints on the project. Throughout the process, as you know, we've met with some of you, Mr. Mayor, we've met with community leaders, we've met with the state, and yes, we've met with neighborhood people, because one thing we want to do is be completely transparent, open and honest about what we're doing. XTL is an excellent corporate partner in the communities that they currently reside in, and they wish very strongly to be an excellent corporate partner in the city of Council Bluffs. Just to help explain some of the parameters with regard to the coverage of the site and in particular the height, because that has been an issue of concern. We prepared a graphic which I'd like to just show you, and basically it shows what's currently approved at the intersection.
Charlie, can you get Mike or somebody to hold that so that the people at home can hear what you're saying?
Sure.
Where you want me, Mayor, right here?
Yeah, it's perfect, Mike.
And then eventually turn it around.
So this is what we call a massing diagram, and it shows the 4 quadrants of the intersection of 24th and Veterans Highway. As you can see, there are 3 quadrants where there don't currently exist buildings, but the zoning and the platting has been approved. In one corner, we have a potential concrete plant. And what is depicted here is the yellow is the setback area where you can't build a building, and the orange is the area in which they can build a building, and it represents to scale the height of the building they can build there today.
Mike, can you kind of show that to the audience and the TV camera? So.
You do very well at that, Mike.
A holder and a model.
In the southeast corner, it shows the proposed electrical company building. Again, the yellow shows the setback. The orange shows the potential building that can be built there today. In the northeast quadrant, it shows the approved platting, approved zoning, and approved text amendment, where we call it a data center, but some kind of operation that's linked to the data center that currently owns the land. So similar to what was already approved for the intersection, we move forward with what we believe is a high-quality, clean industrial project. We chose not to pursue a height such as what is across the street, but we choose to pursue one that would work for the company based on the constraints they were dealing with. So again, I have 11 by 17 copies of this if you'd like it. I could share that with you.
I make a motion to receive and file those if you have them available.
Second.
Charlotte, I don't know if it's your question or if it's Anthony's question, but and maybe you answered it and I got busy looking at the poster, but the common question is why up, why not out?
Certainly. My name's Anthony Cerrone. I didn't hear the question.
What a lot of people are asking, Mr. Cerrone, why up and not out? Can you increase the footprint and do a shorter building? Why does it make sense for you to go up?
Absolutely we can. The problem with that is it's more expensive to do so because we have to add more cranes. And in adding more cranes, you have to add more concrete, and it exponentially would increase the cost substantially.
In addition to that, we do have an issue with wetlands and with stormwater detention that takes up quite a bit of surface area.
Anybody have any questions for Charlie or? Thank you.
I would like to commend you gentlemen as well as the mayor and Councilman Watson and Mr. Dellinger for making the effort to go make contact with residents of the Twin City neighborhood. I think that was a very good gesture, a very good thing to do, and a model for how we approach these development projects in the future. So well done.
We really appreciate it, and again, we'll make ourselves available to meet with anyone to discuss any aspect of this project at any time.
The difference between the Planning Commission recommendation and the Community Development recommendation is 25 feet. How would that impact? Planning Commission is 150, and Community Development, their maximum is 125. They preferred 75. In the 25 feet, from my memory, the building is 133, and then there's antennas or something on the top. What would that 25 feet, if we went with the community development 125 feet, what would that do to the project?
I believe that community development offered 4 options to the Planning Commission.
They did. The highest one was 125.
The 125 was a number that was submitted based on a certain set of information that we had that was prior to some of these investigations being done. For example, once we were able to conduct the geotechnical investigation, we found that the deep foundation would have to go deeper, and we provided that information to our client, XTL, and then they're currently working with a general contractor, and they went out and determined the additional costs, and I believe it came back that there was a feasibility issue with additional costs instead of going wider, going taller. So the additional height was because we had to put more volume in a smaller space, I think.
And I'm trying to marry that up with the letter that was in the packet that only requested 133.9 feet as far as the building and the height. So if we went with 133.9,
that is a letter that we prepared after we conducted the geotechnical investigation, and we were better informed as to the constraints of what we could actually support.
so if we passed it tonight at 134,
Are there air handling units on the top, or are there refrigeration units up there?
Well, the language is accepting the rooftop units. So if you passed it at 134, I think it's more than what we need. It would be.
Air conditioning is 9, 10 feet.
Right, but the language is excluding the rooftop.
so the difference between the 133.9 and the 125, that's detrimental.
Correct.
We can still put the freezers on the top.
Mm-hmm.
On top of the 133.9.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that was, if last time we met, my original motion was to cap it at 134, and then for some reason it got flipped to 150.
Well, it was to concur with the planning commission, which was 150, and as I hear this discussion, and I don't know if this is an accurate assessment, but it sounds to me like, and I don't know what the height of those refrigeration units could be, but was the planning commission trying to set a cap on the height rather than give you free range to go up to however?
They were aware that the limitation across the street is 160, and They recommended the 150.
But did that include the units on top of the building? I guess that's where I'm getting confused.
Yeah, that's why
and-
that's why they did it, because of the units on top of the building.
So,
Well, then I'm
ours
wondering
includes
if they
everything.
didn't do that to say, hey, we don't want it any taller than 150.
Okay, including the
Including the units.
accoutrements on the top.
Yeah.
Dick, and that's the way ours reads. It doesn't say, because he just mentioned that it says except for.
The
And
one
that
that
concerns me.
the one that we submitted stated accepting rooftops.
Okay,
That
but the-
motion to amend to go to the 150 was made by a person who's employed in the trades, and in his mind, he may have just been trying to address what it's really going to look like when it's all said and done.
So that's the building and the units on the top? Electrical, but, okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. All right.
Yeah, actually, I have one more question. To the resident who spoke, she mentioned it would be nice to get involved in the community. In your presentation, you mentioned that they're a good citizen or corporate sponsor, or not sponsor, partner. What would an example of your involvement in the community be? Not to put you on the spot or hold you to what you say, but I'm just trying to get an example.
But you are putting me on the spot.
Well, yes, I am. Only on camera.
Of course, where else so it could be played back. I can tell you what we do in other communities.
Yes.
We sponsor Little League football, Little League baseball, and I don't like anybody else's advertisements. In some communities, we bought motorcycles for the police department. We bought horse-drawn trailers for the police department and bicycles for the police department. So I'm on the record, do not ask me for any of that. Cookies maybe at Christmas time, but it's just good business. And I know one person had a concern about saying that we are going to, requiring us to hire so many people from the community. This is a very sophisticated system. We are committed to hire people that qualify. Now, when we look for a mechanic, we're not looking for a guy to change oil. We're looking for a guy that knows robotics. So we have already contacted the community colleges here and say, give us your brightest. And we realize that it's going to cost us, out of our pocket, at least $400,000 to train. I hope oh God, you're going to send me a bill for this?
Don't worry, you're not on the spot.
And the reason being, it makes good sense to hire local people, provided they're qualified. We'll be sending these people to Europe for training for 3 months. So when we bring the cranes in, they've participated in making the cranes. And then a 90-day commissioning. It just makes good business sense. That's all.
And while you're kind of up there to answer an additional question she had, and maybe Mike's the guy to do it, but she talked about 250 annual contributions in property tax. That's after the rebate of the property taxes. And so for 10 years, 75% of their property taxes that they pay in get rebated. Year 11, it's 50%, so you'd add another 125,000 to the 250. So after that, you pay 375 for the next 5 years, and then year 15, it's $1 million a year. So it's
the first time I heard that.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Part of business.
And I don't know that math's right. Mike's giving me a funny look, but
Something like that.
Any other questions? Have a Merry Christmas.
You too.
any other questions? None? Do we have a motion?
I would make a motion again to concur with the planning commission.
Are we on C?
Second, yeah,
We
we're
are on
C.
the first one.
C. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're
I
on
skipped
C.
it. I skipped ahead to A, didn't
Yeah.
I? Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This is the time and place for the public hearing on the matter of ordinance 6221, amending the zoning map is adopted by reference in section 15.27.020B by rezoning all of that part of the southeast quarter of section 10-74-44 and that part of the northeast quarter of section 15-74-44, lying north of the Veterans Memorial Highway right-of-way, and that part of the southwest quarter of section 11-74-44, lying west of the 24th Street right-of-way and north of the Veterans Memorial Highway right-of-way, proposed Lot 1, South 24th Street and Highway 275 Industrial, from A2/Parks Estates and Agricultural District to I-1 Light Industrial District as defined in Chapter 15.20. Is proof of publication on file?
It is on file.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Are there any oral protests of this matter? Anyone wishing to speak against? Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, what's the council's pleasure?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion.
That was possibly one of the longest ordinance titles I have ever seen.
It gets worse.
The next one's about that.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and we're going to jump down to 5A, as based on the amended. You want to read that, Madam Clerk?
Sure. Ordinance 6223, amending chapter 15.20, I-1 Light Industrial District by amending section 15.20.050 site development regulations relative to the maximum height allowable.
Motion to approve the ordinance and concur with Planning Commission recommendation.
Second.
Discussion.
I think that there are a total of 3 votes on this property, and I just want folks to know that the first one's vote was about splitting the property in 2, creating a subdivision for property line purposes. This last vote was about rezoning it. It's currently agricultural land and rezoning it to light industrial. And this third vote is whether in that light industrial zone we triple the maximum allowed height with some caveats put in there. And I've struggled on this because it does bring jobs, it does bring needed property tax base. Staff is recommending that we go from 50 to 75 feet tall, and for every 1 foot above 50, we increase the setback. That is more yard on all sides of the building, so the building doesn't look as tall for the next 25 feet. So the recommendation by the professionals we employ is half what the company is seeking, and some of the expectations of other businesses and the folks in the area, businesses and residential who bought in that area, I mean, we're tripling that height, and for one project, and it looks like a very good project, but I'm concerned about the precedent. Looking at it, the Mid-America Center, its highest point is about 100 foot tall, so this would be a building 1.5 times that tall on the corner of Veterans and South 24th, and the marketplace doesn't need any more difficulties. I think that's too tall, and for any one project, I just don't like the precedent, so I'm afraid I'm very reluctantly going to have to vote against the tripling of the maximum height.
Just for point of reference, in that requirement is that it's based on a certain amount of acres, so I think
Indeed.
it's 40 acres. So.
Indeed, yeah.
So it won't open, in case people get worried that they're gonna,
but they
next to it won't happen unless there's a 40-acre parcel available.
And across the street is a 160 height.
But my understanding, however, though, is the footprint allowed, there could be an additional building added. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's up to 60%. It's a sizable number of the property that can be, once we change the zoning, tripling it. This isn't the last building that can be built on that site. I don't mean to suggest the entire thing could be 150 feet tall, far from it, but I don't think it limits them to just one. I think they could expand.
That's correct.
Yeah, so I think that's something we should bear in mind. I'm not saying this is an easy question or vote. It isn't, at least for me.
Any other discussion? All right, we have a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, this is the time and place for a public hearing as advertised on the matter of ordinance 6222, amending the zoning map as adopted by reference in section 15.27.020B by rezoning the northerly half of the property at 240 Kenmore Avenue, described as that part of Outlot 1, Keyline Home Place, adjacent to the north half of Lot 12, auditor subdivision of lots 13, 16, and 14, auditor subdivision of the southwest quarter, northeast quarter of section 30-75-43, more fully described in Book 102, page 8140 of the Potawatomi County Recorder's Office, from C2- Commercial District to R1/ Single Family Residential District, as defined in Chapter 15.08B. Is proof of publication on file?
It is on file.
Have any written protests been received?
None received.
Are there any oral protests of this matter? Anyone who wishes to speak against? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in favor? Seeing no one, what's the council's pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just so folks in the audience, again, understand what's going on, this is a little bit of a cautionary tale about zoning and zoning maps. The zoning on a particular area was changed by subsequent development and needs of the surrounding property owners. And so the zoning change that took place after this particular property was built, and I think I have this right, is it?
No, it's, that zoning had been like that from the beginning when I did my research on it. There wasn't a zoning change. It was my understanding that they took it all the way back to the original zoning maps, because I thought it was a Scribner's error, but it wasn't. It had been there from the beginning. So the house was built on there
And the
when it was zoned.
two varying zonings went right down the middle of the living room.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the real issue, that the zoning map ended up bisecting someone's house.
And so people know, it's the house up on Kenmore, I believe, right up above the hill from the Pizza Hut on East Pierce. So if you look at the way, there's that very tall hill, cliff really, the way the land zigzags, the line goes straight. So part of the ground down there where the Pizza Hut is, the zoning occurs up on Kenmore just based on how the land works in the real world. So we're just making it fit the real world.
Yes.
We had some discussion earlier tonight about zoning and how it would impact surrounding properties, and again, I offer this comment just from the vantage point of understanding that as we go through and we think about zoning changes to accommodate individual commercial activities, that care needs to be addressed, that we account for other existing properties within those boundaries. So in this case, we're fixing a mistake.
Yeah, and I think these people sold their house in September, and I assume that sale fell through on them.
Yeah, I believe it did. It was very unfortunate. Lender won't lend on it if it's in a commercial zoning, and it couldn't be fixed quick enough, so it was very unfortunate.
Million stories in the naked city. Any other discussion? You have to be old to understand what that. There is a television show in the 50s. You weren't even born. You weren't even born yet.
That really leads to a lot of questions, but
no. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This is a time and place for a public hearing as advertised on the matter of ordinance 6224 as amended on 11/24/2015, amending Title 17 Housing by amending Chapter 17 as proof of publication on file.
It is on file.
Have any written protests been received?
Yes, 40-plus emails have come through the city clerk's office, and I know council has received many emails and phone calls also.
All right, and again, just to give you the groundwork, if you come to the podium, give your name and address for the record. And then you have 10 minutes, and I'm going to keep track of 10 minutes because I know a lot of people want to speak. And so typically we allow a little leeway, but tonight we won't be able to do that because there's maybe 100 people here. So
Before we start, do we have to say this or after I start?
what's that?
If we want to.
Oh, we've addressed it. The other question I have is while folks are talking, I've emailed a copy that updates based on our discussion that will occur after the public hearing, or after today's part of the public hearing, to the building official, and I wonder if he could see that someone makes some copies so that we work off at that point the ones reflecting what we changed this afternoon. I sent it to you by email just now. Yeah, I'm glad you're not checking your email during the meeting, but thank you.
She doesn't understand what you're playing.
Yeah, no, I meant
Oh.
before it starts, don't we have to say the bottom thing or no?
No,
The intent, I think, is to continue the hearing on to the January meeting, not close it, to allow people an opportunity to actually review the revised text.
Correct.
And then be
Yes.
prepared to comment on it in January as well.
So I believe we will intend, at least I will
I shouldn't
support
make
it,
it say that
attending.
before.
The motion for it, or the motion to continue the public hearing, and then a motion to move it to third. So it'd go to third. That's, the public hearing would stay open. I believe I had that right. Okay.
Ryan, you're up.
That's my intention.
Ryan Rogers, 37 Horizon Drive. Let me start off by saying I'm thankful for every one of you council people who have met with me over the last couple of weeks. I know you have busy schedules. I want to start by saying I'm not opposed to an active inspection process. I am opposed to an inspection that almost any home in this city, owner occupied or landlord owned, would not pass should this new code be enforced. The possibility of a $500 fine and a misdemeanor really has me bothered. And I think Dick kind of cleared it up for me. Dick, it's correct that first time out, there's no fines, correct?
Yeah, the only time you would be fined or cited is if there was continued violations that we refused to
Perfect.
correct.
Can I ask for a clarification? Is that current law?
Yes.
Yes.
'Cause that portion of the law is not changing.
Okay.
If we are Iowa's leading edge, which we claim to be, then why are we imposing the strictest possible laws and ordinances? Other cities have adopted this, but have redacted a bunch of the material, or they work off the quality housing standard or the Section 8, or they've created their own. This point seems especially odd to me because of the competitive market we face with Omaha. No other city in the state faces competition like we do. I've talked to several landlords who own 10 or 20 rentals that have said they will just get out of it versus having to face these new obstacles. I guess if it comes down to it, people would choose to invest in Omaha or maybe Carter Lake. Why would anyone choose CB now? I keep hearing that we should trust Steve Carmichael and his staff to not be too strict with proposed codes. I do trust Steve. Matt, you can attest to the high praises that I give Steve in our conversations. My concern comes later down the road when maybe we have a new building official. What if he or she wants to implement these codes to the fullest? Why not remove some of the things now so we don't have to rehash it later? I want to know if an inspector is driving around in his car with this code book and decides to enforce each code to the fullest, will this be equally enforced? If I keep track of every inspection that is being done, will all the results be the same, or is the city opening itself up for a lawsuit by imposing different standards on different landlords or homeowners? The best thing I can say is let's apply this equally. I will allow the inspectors into my personal house, and I want them coming to all 5 of yours also. I will walk through with them through your homes to make sure they don't miss anything. I think it's fair if you want to invade the privacy of 25,000 people in our town, you should open your doors to do the same. I want you to be just as safe as my tenants. I believe that Nate's, Melissa's, and Sharon's houses will need $15,000 to $20,000 to be brought up to the current code with the basements. I can assure you that I have replaced 3 basement walls that were failing, but I have also been forced to replace 3 that an inspector deemed were failing. On 5 houses, I've had to put footings under existing posts setting on concrete floors. And by that, what I mean is 50 years ago, someone might have put a post under a floor joist or a beam, and they come in and say, cut a footing under that. Nate, I believe in our conversation, you said you have posts that rest right on dirt.
Yes, and they meet the existing building code.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
Then they're enforcing it incorrectly. When we talked, you told me that the dirt, if they're making me replace it on concrete, then why would that be better, or why would dirt be better than concrete?
I probably shouldn't get into a colloquy with you.
I just want to know what makes my rental property less safe than your house. Let's be honest, this isn't about safety for you. It's about cleaning up our city. So how about we hire 10 more inspectors and do all owner-occupied too? Let's make it equal for everyone. Our current program is inspecting 90 rental property addresses per year. Now we say we will hire new inspectors to inspect 1,000 homes per year. Is our current system failing? How can inspectors go from 90 rental property addresses to 1,000 in a year? That seems a bit steep. In my estimate, we have 300 to 500 bad properties that need cleaned up. Why not direct the resources we currently have at those problem properties? I want to know what each of you on this council has invested monetarily wise in Council Bluffs, not your personal residence. Yes. Do you invest in Walmart? Do you invest in Berkshire? At 19, I chose to start investing in Council Bluffs. I have 75 rental property units and 4 businesses in this town. I can honestly tell you that I wish I would have never started investing here if this goes the way I'm scared it will. If this takes a turn in the wrong direction, the consequences for our city will be unrepairable. Finally, I will say again, I am not against an inspection program such as the HQS or a Section 8 standard inspection. It is my understanding at the study session, lots of these harsh codes might have changed a little bit. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I haven't read it. So with that, I would ask that we keep the public hearing open until we have a chance to read it. I just think, or at least I hope, we continue to work together to retract some of these overreaching codes. Thank you.
Thank you. Lenny, I don't know if, Don, were you waiting? Don, are you waiting? Go ahead. Lenny.
Donald Jones, 19332 Old Lincoln Highway, Council Bluffs. It's just I got like 50 rental houses, and I don't know what's wrong with the program that we got now. You know, I'll just sell mine. I got 3 business here. I was born and raised here, lived here all my life. And I see no necessity for this. I'm with Ryan Rogers, what he just got done saying. I fully believe in that. And I live in a $300,000 home, and Steve Carmichael, I don't think it'd pass mine. I mean, it's not him personally, it's just the way it's set up. And I try to keep, if it's fire and safety, I'm all for it. But if it goes beyond that, I'm not. And that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Lenny?
Yeah. Lenny Scaletta, 2025 31st Avenue. I'll make it quick. You know, if renters are inconvenienced and they're in a house and they keep inspecting and they have to move, they're not going to come back to Council Bluffs. They're going to move somewhere else. You know, if apartment owners are going to thinking about putting up a building or anything like that, they're going to do surveys and everything and find out if they find out a lot of people are moving out or there's a lot of red tape or a whole bunch of inspectors that have to justify their jobs, there goes business out of here. And what about small businesses? If they have to move into a rental place, into a strip mall, and they look around and then they knock on the neighbor's door or on one of the other strip malls and say, what's it like here? All these inspectors are always here. They're not up to code. They're going to take their business somewhere else. And then what about big businesses? Big businesses do a lot of surveys and evaluating before they move into an area, a corporation, and they're going to. So if they say, what's the rent like? I'm gonna have to have 20, 50, 100 employees. What's it gonna be like if they have to rent people are having problems with the rental property and things like that? They're gonna go somewhere else. So that really concerns me, and laws always get worse and worse. Like I say, it's gonna start out with the renters, but what about the owners? Is it gonna say, well, we made a lot of money on or we're doing a lot on the rent here, so let's try to fix all the owners too. We found out that renters that have pink apartment buildings, we don't like them. Well, now you have a pink house that you own. We don't like that. So it just gets worse when all laws move into other laws. And another thing that I have a problem with is International Property Maintenance Code. Why do we have to have international? Why isn't it right here? So anyway, that's what I have to say.
Thanks, Lonnie. Sean?
I'm Sean Lake. I have an address at 1248 Fairmount Avenue. I was going to reread my email that I sent to you, but my phone is not cooperating. Basically, I'm a local landlord. I'm married to a local police officer who is also a licensed general contractor and has built homes in the city. He has his building license also. We chose to live here. He's not from here. And we like real estate. The homes that we bought were previously owner-occupied. The minute that we close on them, we get our hands dirty and we fix them up with licensed electricians and plumbers. What concerns me is I feel like the city inspection program that we have right now is working fine. There are landlords who are not participating, so let's go ahead and find them or whatever needs to be done to get this going. Nate, I just saw you roll your eyes. In your email response to me, you said your hands are tied because this is state law, that we have to bring these inspectors in. False.
Yes, ma'am.
False, false. The Rental Housing Code in Iowa, 364:17, says the city shall adopt enforcement procedures which shall include 1, a program for regular rental inspections, which we have. 2, rental inspections upon receipt of complaints, which happens. 3, certification of inspected rental housing.
Don't have that. Don't have that.
Nate, you interpreted and misrepresented this to me, thinking that I was not going to look it up. This is my concern with bringing 3 to 4 more inspectors into this city that will have unchecked power and will use their good common sense to interpret these codes and regulations. There's already city codes in place. There's already laws in place. Let's see. I feel like this ordinance is meant to push landlords out of business with fees and inconsistencies in their inspections. And I feel like you want to get rid of the low-income housing tenants. You want them to possibly find housing through nonprofit or subsidized housing. But guess what? Nonprofit people still make a profit. Somebody has an income. And who says that their subsidized housing is better? This council is thoroughly overreaching its power. This not only has maddened the landlords in town, but several local business owners are watching what you're doing. You're all up for re-election in 2015, you 3 that support this, and we will be proactive in financially supporting whoever runs against you. You need to look at who your landlords are, and you need to understand we don't like what you're doing.
If we continue to have that loud of outbursts and we can't move forward, we're going to be here till midnight. 2, I will always vote for the right thing, not because I'm going to get reelected. I know that we have people that only vote on things that they think will get them reelected. I will be in this position as long as the people want me here, and when they don't, I'm good with that. So threats about not getting me reelected will never affect me because I will never cast a vote based on getting reelected. So I just want everybody to know that going forward. That's not a threat to me.
And I just want you to know, please keep it on topic. Don't attack the council. That doesn't do you any good either. So you're up. And
I'm Abby T-Sword. I'm with Selden Company. I oversee 1,325 units in this town. I currently pay $19,875 in fees, just the $15 per unit. Raising it to per unit will take me up to $46,375. One of my properties alone will be almost $10,000 in permit inspections. We follow quality housing standards. We follow the federal Section 8 code CFR 24982. Sorry, I have a cold, so. We are funded with tax credits. We have HUD project based. We have Section 42. We also work with these municipal housing agency. My managers inspect our units every 90 days. I inspect them one time annually. We have IFA, Iowa Finance Authority, that comes out and does an annual inspection. We also have the HUD Real Estate Assessment Center that comes out and inspects. Also, we have our bank lending institution that comes out and inspects, and sometimes our tax credit syndicators. Sometimes our tenants are bothered with 10 inspections per year. We keep very quality housing standards. We are trained. We go to HUD, Real Estate Assessment Center, and get free training on quality housing standards. I don't understand where our system's failing and why the $15 isn't enough. We've had people drive through our buildings and leave and have no insurance, and we've paid the impact of $20,000 with a $50,000 deductible on our properties. We don't ask for any funding. Our owners eat that cost. I think there's a better way, and we need to look at this a lot harder. There is no inspection fees in Omaha, Nebraska whatsoever. I've had Wichita, Kansas, where there's no inspection fees. I've been in Ohio. I've been in property management for 20 years. I sell real estate here. I think there's a better solution that we could figure this out, and I don't see the increase in how it's going to help people wanting to invest here when we see, and I don't want to cut anybody down, but if you drive down to 8th Street and 2nd Avenue, I don't know how they're able to be renting there. If you come look at our properties are very good. I mean, there's no comparable. I understand quality housing, and I understand slumlords, and I think there's a big difference, and I don't think the people that comply should be punished, and I think it's a big, huge impact. We pay over $1.2 million in real estate taxes to the City of Council Bluffs every year. So I'm asking that you really rethink this, and let's see if we can come to some other compromise. $15 we can work with that, but I think it's getting outrageous. And really, when I looked at the 50 that it was going to be, that was going to be a 67,000 year increase, deduction from our owners' profits.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Eileen O'Connor, and I live at 500 Spencer Avenue. I also own 5 single dwelling rentals here in town. I'm kind of what you'd call a mom and pop. I've been in the rental industry for over 30 years. And first of all, I do want to commend the council in listening to what, I sent an email and I got a response from all but one, and I'm sure that person probably would have let me know too. So anyway, because of this short time frame. But I do want to indicate that back when the current system was developed, there was an intention at that time that we would have spot checks and that there would probably be an approximately 10% of the properties would be inspected. However, originally 2 people were hired, and shortly thereafter, and I don't remember the exact time frame, it got reduced back to 1. And it really became a complaint-oriented process rather than what it was intended. And we were paying at that time $10 per unit, and it was at that time assumed that it would fund, I think, 2 people. Yes. And then it was increased to $15, and I was hopeful at that time that, okay, it wasn't keeping up with the times. Maybe now they'll be able to get back to the way it was designed, but it never has. And so I guess I look at it and say, I don't know that we've really given our current process a chance to work. And I know that I know there are several attorneys on the city council, and I know that a lot of attorneys have differing opinions. And I go back to that we did work very closely with our city attorney in developing it, and we've had a close relationship over the years. And generally, we've kind of been in on developing processes from the beginning, and I think that we've always felt that our voices were heard. This time it seemed like, and I call it a rush to judgment, and I think maybe I didn't explain it well enough, because I know I got a response, and I thought, well, that isn't quite what I had in mind when I said it. The rush to judgment was what I think is, we had representation on a committee, but they only met once, and then they got immediately the wording to the ordinances on a Thursday, and were expected to review it and dispense the information to the rest of us so that we could respond by Monday. And that's kind of a little bit on the fast track for something that is impacting a lot of people's livelihoods. Many of the people in the room here are small operators that have not had the benefit of working for a large company, which I did, and they've invested in real estate property as their retirement. And I guess I'd like to have people realize that we're all a little bit anxious because of that, what I consider rush to judgment. And even now, and I applaud you for spending a lot of time this afternoon in the planning to try and come up with some wording, but then it's like, okay, but we're still proceeding on track, and we'd really like to have some time so that we could have that committee get back together, review it truly review it, not in a rush situation, give people a little bit of time to think about it. I just think that it's a very important consideration for a lot of people that are impacted. And I guess I'm asking for, can we just slow it down a little bit, really look at it, and give careful consideration to the need for it. I know that it's based on some of you believing that we have to have it to meet the law or the intent of the law. I guess I ask you, is it really broken that badly if we gave it a chance the way it was intended? Thank you.
Thank you. Brooke?
Hi, Brooke Hubbard, 4118 Briarwood Drive. I have nothing prepared, and I was not planning on getting up and speaking. My husband and I bought our first couple rental properties shortly after we first got married as a retirement. When we moved back here for the second time, I was pregnant with our second son, which was 7 years ago. In that short time, we have developed owning 42 rental units. My concern is mainly to the landlords here. I'm a lot like Ryan Rogers. I got all my eggs in one basket. I've invested in a few other businesses in town that service Council Bluffs. But we do not need to sell our properties. And in fact, I think as landlords, if we do give in to the guidelines and say it's too hard and just throw up our hands, I know a lot of the community is thinking that that's exactly what the city council wants to have happen. That you guys want the low-income housing to go to Omaha, go to North O, and you want to develop in these larger apartment complexes that bring in a bigger revenue, that pay higher taxes to you guys. And I want you to know that as landlords, I'm not going anywhere. I know a lot of landlords are not going to go anywhere. And we're going to work with you guys as long as you're willing to work with us on getting these guidelines correct. And from the emails that I have sent out, I've gotten a positive response back from you guys. I know you're working closely with my aunt, Jean Edwards, on making sure that these guidelines are in the landlord's and the tenant's best interest. And keeping personal opinion out of it is going to be best for everyone. But I'm speaking to the landlords tonight, and I think that if we give in and we sell our properties when it gets tough, all you're going to do is make it easier for the city council, if that's what you guys want to have happen, and make those properties be turned into owner-occupied units and have those renters go somewhere else. And I think that it's important that you guys work with the landlords, that we get this right and it gets done the correct way and the fair way to us as landlords. Because I know a lot of us are not buying these properties to make them dumps and to just put people in them and to be able just to collect our income. Because the landlords here know you don't make a lot of money off rental properties. It's an investment. We've invested in Council Bluffs. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Danny Jones, 131 Helen Avenue, 51503. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of myself, my family, and the thousands of families in Council Bluffs area who do rent their homes. I myself do rent. I am not a native of Council Bluffs. I come here from Omaha. I moved here in 2002 after my divorce. Being a single mother of 3 children, it was an easy task, as you can imagine. But Council Bluffs was a breath of fresh air. Everything I needed for me and my children was within minutes of my home. School, work, the bank, the shopping, the groceries, you name it, church, everything was right here for us. I've been married in this town in those 12 years. We've had 4 children out of 6 attend school and now attend college in this community. I myself am a current college student at Iowa Western. My husband and I have worked with many landlords and homeowners concerned with the rundown homes in our communities for over 7 years. And again, we've had the great opportunity of remodeling and rebuilding those homes, to which have helped the communities and families within those neighborhoods take better pride in their own homes, and have inevitably helped raise the property values of those homes and communities. It is because of the great landlords and homeowners in our community who care about their properties, to which my husband and I have been able to make a living and provide for our family. I don't believe that there's a single person in this room tonight or in these halls that doesn't feel pride for our community here, and most are willing to do almost whatever it takes to keep that momentum going. We cannot deny that there are at least a dozen slumlords in this community that need to be dealt with. There's over 400 people that city officials can't even find because they're behind private corporations, not even operating in the state of Iowa. But we already have a set of laws and regulations set forth by the City of Council Bluffs, which are to take action against landlords who don't follow the rules. This amendment you are trying to impose, to me, is nothing more than a power grab, rule by intimidation, and an opportunity to make money off the law-abiding landlords and homeowners who do take pride in their properties, to pay for the ones you can't do anything about or refuse to do anything about out of fear of big lawyers under big corporations. These taxes and fees will inevitably roll down on we, the tenants. You cannot punish the slumlords of Council Bluffs at the expense of the decent citizens who do follow the rules. Another major point that I would like to make, and in my opinion is the most important one. Obviously, I'm sure the majority of you are familiar with our Constitution. But in case some of you have forgotten that, I would like to refresh your memories. The Fourth Amendment of our great Constitution states that the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. And let us also not forget our Declaration, which states that we have the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers for the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles, organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety, happiness. And when abuses do take place, it is the right and the duty of the people to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. If I am not mistaken, a few of you are up for re-election within the next coming year. How you move forward with this will affect your seat on this board, as you hold it only because the people of Council Bluffs have elected you to do so. The fact of the matter is, you have no right under state or federal law to search our homes for whatever reasons you deem necessary. You have no right to find the good people of this community because of the irresponsible behaviors of a few. You do, however, have the right to hold the slumlords responsible for not maintaining their properties and to uphold them to the law that we already have established. I love our town, I love our close community, and I think we all, city officials, good landlords, homeowners, and tenants alike, do have a responsibility to join forces peacefully and lawfully in continuing to beautify Council Bluffs. But I can promise you this, if you move forward with these changes to the ordinance. The good people of this town will not forget, and we will fight you in every political way possible. And make no mistake, you will inevitably drive out the good people of this community, thus leaving more vacant homes and less good people contributing to the city of Council Bluffs. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to remind, this is people speaking against.
I'm sorry.
Speaking against. Gene? All right.
Are you neutral?
People against? Yeah, I mean, if you got points on both sides, you're fine.
She's on both, I think. That's what I mean. I think she's kind of in between.
Jean Edwards, 115 East 29th Avenue.
She's in between.
I used to be against it, part of it, but I was here this afternoon for the discussion. In your study session, I've seen an amendment that is apparently going to be proposed at some point. I think that's tonight. And you guys covered a lot of my concerns. I had some specific concerns. I had phone calls and conversations and sit-down meetings with Steve Carmichael and several members of the city council in this 2 or 3 week period. So I know that because I had specific concerns and I've seen the amendment that you guys have talked about this afternoon, that my concerns are taken care of. So I'm no longer against 6224 if those amendments that you talked about this afternoon do go through. There was one we know about light and window pane area that's going to continue to get discussed, and I hope that does get discussed thoroughly because I don't like to measure my rooms and my windows for the 8% of the floor space that has to have window light, and then there's more of that if you're like within 3 feet of the building next door that doesn't even count as an outside window. So there's a lot to that, and I have confidence after today that that'll get worked through. Also, I just want to say one thing about the fees, because I know there was either a misprint or a misunderstanding in the non-Pearl, and people may have read that landlords' current fees are $15 a year and that they're going to be $34 every other year. I believe that's what was printed, but that's not right. They want to bill us every other year, but it will be $70 every other year, so that comes out to $35 a year. So just in case some people have a misunderstanding of what the fee change will be, landlords will be going from $15 a year to a $35 a year fee. And I am a landlord. My husband and I have rental property, and I'm the one that manages it. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Russ, are you against? Phil?
Hi, I'm Phil Cable, 503 Frank Street. I was on the original committee that did this inspection, and I'm sorry, people, our people that were here before when they did this pulled the wool right over our eyes. When we sat in this committee for weeks, we came up with just using a plain old Section 8 inspection. Well, that was good. Matt was on the thing and all, and I had a talk with Matt last week, and he didn't remember. He thought that's what we were still using, but no, we weren't. And I can't understand how two men out of a room of 14 people can decide what the rest of us are going to do. And that's where that inspection came up with. 2 people in this city made the program that we have today, which was against everyone in that room that was on those committees. We all pressed for just straight Section 8. But we had a landlord in town who could not pass Section 8, but he could pass city code. Now, how can you pass city code and not pass Section 8? There's something severely wrong here. And I also have to say, if you keep doing what you're doing with these people, it's not right. I'm getting out of the business. I'm 58 years old. My mother's 92. We've been in business for 65 years in this city. We've invested our whole lives in this city. And I'm just tired of every time I turn around, they're wanting a piece of this, a piece of that. And we can't have this anymore. We have to get together as a city of Council Bluffs, work together, and quit this crap. What is wrong with the inspections we have today? Nothing. And $34, that's not a bad cost. Actually, it's about the same as what it was when we originally started, because originally we had $100 per building and $10 per unit. And that's about the same. So that I can live with. But 18 years and I've never seen an inspector. How are we gonna get up to that part? Even with 2, 3, 4 inspectors, you're still not gonna get the inspections done. I have had property in this town since I was a kid. I have never, in the last 4 units I've owned, since that was done, I've only had 1 piece of property left. In 18 years, they have never, ever inspected one of my units. And even with the self-inspection, they were supposed to inspect our units. And that's all I really got to say, and thank you very much for the time.
Thank you.
Russ?
Russell Slate, 253 Euclid Avenue. I don't have any properties, but what I am concerned about is the lady before me mentioned the Fourth Amendment. Behind the green mask, UN Agenda 21. That's what this is all about. Guys, I don't need somebody coming into my house telling me what to do, what not to do. You could have a neighbor who doesn't like you, turn you into the city, and then the city's all over you. We don't need this. Go after the people that are not in code, but leave us civilians alone. Who, I defended my country, and you all know that. But under international property maintenance code, we're not the UN, we're not international. We are the United States of America, and we have freedom of speech and other rights. That's all I have to say. I want to thank you for your time. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, everybody. I'm Megan Youngblood. I'm at 21 Shore Acres here in Council Bluffs. First, I'd like to start by asking where this legislation came from. I guess I still don't know. Something that I think everybody here is forgetting is that, and I'm a landlord, when I sign a lease with folks, it becomes an agreement between myself and my tenant. When you bring in this ordinance, what you're doing is effectively making a third party into this lease. You're bringing you, the city government, into this. So it no longer becomes an agreement between myself and my tenant. It becomes an agreement with myself and my tenant with the city council or representatives from the city as this third party, this governing body. I don't think that's right. For thousands of years, landlords have been landlording, and these are agreements they have with tenants. I don't understand why in 2014, all of a sudden this has to change. Since this proposed ordinance 6224 covers, or I will say recovers, most of the codes that are already in effect, I don't understand why we need this ordinance. This makes no sense. Why do you need to say it again? How many laws do you need to say against murder? Do you need 27 different ways to say something about murder? If these are already covered, why are we reiterating this? Again, where did this come from? All this does is open up more ways for landlords to be fined and held accountable for things that are beyond our control. You cannot legislate common sense. And when you go with this, that is what you're asking us to do. Somebody before me had spoken, I'm not sure if it was Ryan or another person, but they had said that for the most part, us landlords do get along very well with the city. Maureen Eiler, I really respect her. I like her as a person. We work great together. I know we have with Steve Carmichael also. But like that person had said, what happens when these folks retire? What happens when there's new people? This is going to be a system of legislating common sense all over again. When you increase the fees, the only people that you're hurting are the people that can't afford it. Just like when gas goes up, it's the people who are at the bottom of the pay scale that feel the pinch the most. So when you change this fee from $15 a unit to $35 a unit, I'm going to pass that along to my tenant. Then the tenant is going to have an increased fee. I don't think you guys realize how far down the road this is going to have an impact. Landlords have already spoken that some are going to get out of the business and some are going to keep their roots planted firmly here. I'm a third generation landlord. I didn't intend on this being my career, but I wound up doing it. you're going to run out the very tenants that can't afford to be ran out. We all want safe housing. The IPMC-based ordinances would be taking these highly trained inspectors, which there is no way that this $35 fee can cover one of these highly trained inspectors. So again, they're going to be pushed along to the tenant. Nate, you emailed me back at 3/19, and you said that the state code requires certification. You even put it in quotation marks for me.
Yes.
You said that you, as a lawyer, think that a person cannot possibly certify himself. Well, I'm here to tell you that yes, they can. Every time a person swears on a Bible, testifies in court, that's what you're doing. You're certifying yourself. You have been having us do these self-inspection certifications. That's what the form is called. I'm going to say it again. Self-inspection certification. So you are asking us to sign on that dotted line on the bottom where we and the tenant sign and certify that the things that we're putting down on those inspections are correct. So yes, Nate, we can certify ourselves, and we have been doing that. I strongly suggest that you throw out this ordinance. I think it's redundant. It already exists. That being said, as a board member of the Landlord Association here in Pottawatomie County, if for some reason, which I don't know why you guys are pushing this, why don't you go with the housing quality standards? That's what Section 8 does. Joni Poor is here from Heartland Family Services. They also do that. My company works closely with both of those agencies. I don't understand why it's good enough for HUD and Section 8 and Heartland Family Services and the Micah House, but not good enough for the City Council. I don't understand the reasoning here, and from being here all day long, no one has explained that to me. So I'm asking you again, seriously, where did this come from? It's my thoughts that this is pure overreach. All the current law says is that there must be an inspection program with towns over 15,000. Nate, it does not say an active inspection. I don't know where you got that from. You emailed that to me. I've saved that. I don't know if you were misinformed, but it doesn't say active anywhere on there. In my emails to everybody here, I've offered myself as a contact. The only two folks that have taken me up on that are Melissa and Al. I would really like to thank you guys both for that. That meant a lot to me. I did hear back from Lynn. Thank you for that. And Nate, thank you for that. I didn't hear back from either you, Mr. Mayor, or you, Mrs. White.
I didn't receive an email from you.
Okay, well, I just wanted to thank the 4 people that did take the time to respond to me. I really appreciate that.
Did you email me or?
I did, yes.
'Cause I was up to 1 o'clock this morning. I think a lot of people in the audience know. I responded to every single email I received.
I
didn't
can't help
miss
you with
one.
that. I can't help
So,
you with that, ma'am.
I've not missed
But
one
it's
email.
my turn to talk, so we're gonna listen to me talk right now.
You know
Time's
what?
up, Meg. Thank you.
I don't think that was 10 minutes.
It is 10 minutes.
My family and my company purchase homes in Council Bluffs. We buy them off of the sheriff's sale, and we buy them when they are sold through the real estate market. I have a really high interest in this.
Megan, your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Don?
Don Angeroth, 304 Glen Avenue. I'm here as president of the Pottawatomie County Landlord Association. Anybody can walk in a house and within 5 minutes you can tell whether a house is safe for human habitation. You don't need 3 pages of checkoffs to prove that. And I know some of you have said, well, why are we concerned about this? Because we've been doing a self-inspection, and if we've been honest on that, they ought to pass the other stuff. In most cases, yes. We've been promised that the inspectors would tend to use common sense. I don't know how you get 10 people to agree on anything in that there. So the only way I see they can enforce the law is to read the code word for word and write down the nitty gritty. Otherwise, they're going to play favoritism. But when I go through and inspect, I go through and look. The tenant has no complaints. I see nothing that's causing a safety hazard. As far as I'm concerned, that place is safe. There again, somebody comes through and reads the code word for word. It may not be that way. But everybody's been happy for several years, so it works out nice. So that's the main difference between what I consider our self-inspection and what we might be faced with having a city inspectors. I personally think our current program would be great, and it will work if people had used it like it was supposed to be used. I personally feel our current system has somewhat been sabotaged, and that over the last 5 years. I don't think it's been given a fair shot. And a lot of the examples that were passed around in the committee that I was in showing, oh, this was why we have to have a crackdown on the landlords, was pictures of stuff that landlords didn't go in there and trash those places. Everybody knows that. Nobody rents a place that way. No tenant would rent a place that way. So a lot of things are being pushed here, and I guess I'm going to say something here. On this committee, I was up here, asked if I would work with the city. I said, yes, we would work with the city. We went into that first committee meeting, and right away, here's the new ordinance stuff, here's going to get shoved down your throat. There was no discussion of why we should switch or anything like that. That doesn't sit real well with me. Looking through the stuff that you covered here this afternoon, a couple things I want to bring up. One of them is where it talks about in section 170905 in the definitions. It mentions there section 108 and one other place, I think back here on page 10, it also mentions 108. 108 has been used as a code to say what was wrong with the property, rather than using the 304, 305, or 306 codes. Those other three codes, 4, 5, and 6, can be appealed if we don't agree with it. 108 is an administrative code which by your definitions cannot be appealed. That I think needs to be changed so that if you are given a problem, you have the right to say something about it if you don't agree with the thing and want to go through the appeal process, rather than being locked out of it. The other thing about the being paid every 2 years, yes, that might cut down on cost, and you say we could pay online, but they charge you a fee for that too, so that's not free. A little earlier today, Nate said something about that we should not use the city as a bank. Well, you should not bankroll our money for the next 2 years either. That's not fair that way. I think being paid yearly works out. They do it now yearly. You have the same number of people coming in and register as you currently have, and we're doing it now for the 15 bucks. I don't know why we can't do it for 35 next year. And let's see, it seemed like there was one more item in here. I guess I need a little more, not that I think my places are going to be condemned or want to be tore down. If so, I'll be on the front step of my shotgun. But anyway, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But here again, I'm speaking for all landlords here, that if a place is condemned and if we can get work access permits to go in and fix them, that should be written in here, rather than just something verbally. You need to have it in there. We know what we can do to get in there and fix the things up on that there. I'd say probably everybody that's standing around here are what I would term good landlords. They fix them up. They got too dang much money invested to let it fall apart. And they're not going to. And that's why we try to pick the good tenants to go with that, which for the most part, luckily we're able to do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carla Limmer, 30 Kent Avenue J, Council Bluffs. First of all, I want to say how happy I am that there was as much work done on Chapter 17 as there was. I was very pleased with that. And now for what I'm not pleased about. Our current program is not breaking the law. That is one person's opinion without any proof. The city is also not in danger of lawsuits from tenants because of any injury or death. Where is the proof? Where are the lawsuits in Iowa? I couldn't find any. Landlords do not condone dangerous, unfit, or unhealthy units. The majority do a good job. That has been stated by city officials. There is no legitimate reason to push a new program. We have 9,000 plus registered rentals in Council Bluffs right now. According to city officials, the average inspection rate for each inspector is 6 properties inspected a day. That would be for new inspectors that are hired, plus the current one that's here. With 223 average workdays in a year, that would be 1,338 inspections a year. In 5 years, the number inspected should be 6,690 properties. 74% of rental properties in Council Bluffs could have been inspected in the last 5 years. Sorry. If that falls, that falls. Other cities in Iowa have 5-year inspection cycles. We don't need 3 or 5-year cycles. Landlords do it once a year, every year, under the current program without any overhead charges. We only need a less burdensome code from requirement. Landlords invest lots of money and time in their investment properties. Why would people think we would purposely set about to damage, destroy, or make unfit something we pay for? A 4 3/4-year study was done by Landlord Association on inspection reports. It was found that an average of less than 100 properties a year are being inspected. According to that study, an average of 45 rental units were inspected a year. It was also found that 56% of all inspections were rental, and 44% were what we call owner-occupied, privately owned and lived in, not rentals. The process is broken, not the program itself. There are laws on the books that give the officials the tools to do all of the 6,690 rental properties that could have been inspected over 5 years. Working on complaint only or official observation only inspections will not cover the law's intent. We have a spot inspection law where any landlord at any time can be notified of an inspection. And if that property was found to be severely out of compliance, all that landlord properties could be then inspected. This has not been done. When this program started in 1996, there were 2 inspectors. One was released shortly after he was hired, and that position was never refilled. We were paying fees to cover those positions and continued to pay for those same fees for 18 years. We have done our part of the program. What we do not need is a new process, more hired staff, and no, I am not against job creation, but I am against an unnecessary government expansion and inflated costs to do so. We do not need a $700,000 program for a one-time inspection every 3 years. It is totally overboard. Landlords do it once every year, and are we perfect at it? Probably not. We furnish affordable homes to our clients. 15.9% of our Council Bluffs residents live below poverty level. That is almost 10,000 residents. Who do you think furnishes them homes? Who do you think takes the risk of providing those homes? The solution to the issue is to back up, leave the program alone, regroup the staff, put the staff back on that we had paying for 18 years. Get it back on track without a new $700,000 3-year cycle program that can be used more effectively by tenants and landlords. Fix it, don't change it. In a normal business world, we do not reward a broken process by increasing control, adding more staff, adding more budget, while looking at the creation of a new department. Please vote no on Ordinance 6224 using all the correct, logical reasons. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't follow that. I agree with her. I'm Dexter Kuntz. I live at 616 North 22nd Street. And pretty much everything I was going to say has been said. But I'd like to reiterate a couple things and add one thing to it. I'm a contractor here in town. Pass this thing quick. I see a boon. I'm gonna make some money. I was gonna retire because I've been tapering off anyway. But the problem that I see with it is I won't be fixing people's houses except at the high end of town, because this is gonna kill the low end housing for the people who can afford it the least. You're putting them out in the street, you're putting them into public housing. But the last thing you're doing is serving the citizens of Council Bluffs. There's some special interest behind this thing. I don't know who it is or what it is, but it is not the people who voted you into office. This is frustrating to see. It seems as though you're here to serve the needs of the state of Iowa, the United States government, and maybe even the UN. But that's not what this is about. You are here not to be their servants, but to protect us in a way from them, from over-regulations, from going against our constitutional rights of privacy and property. This bill has no place in the city of Council Bluffs. It has some good aspects to it. They're needed. The inspection system we have now is great, but I see here an opportunity after these fine people have left office and others are hired and you are gone. There is such opportunity for abuse. I'll be long dead. So I'm not here to even defend myself, but there is too much opportunity for neighbor vendetta, city employee vendetta. You can go after people and wield a heavy club, and this goes after the soft targets, the people who are least able to defend themselves, but they have just enough money to pay the fine and try to patch things up and get along. That's who will be killed by this bill. The people who have nice houses who won't be affected by this, and if they do get hit with something, they'll be able to afford it. This is an assault on the poorest of the poor. It's an assault on the retired. It's an assault on the medically needy. And I think that needs to be weighed. I don't know why the rush is to get this thing through. Slow down, please. Take a hard look at it. And do some introspection, too. We've got fine people who can write fine law right here in the city of Council Bluffs. We don't need to go to some international organization to get ideas. Thank you.
My name is Ruth Nelson. I live at 307 North 7th Street, and I'm a tenant. I agree with everything that gentleman just said. I have lived in the same home for over 15 years. I don't understand why this law has had to come up. There is a system in place. The landlords do come and check the homes. If there is a problem, I call my landlord. My landlord takes care of it. If the landlord doesn't take care of it, there is also an answer to that, is there not? Is there not somewhere I can call and say, this isn't working, and complain, and get something done? Overburdening landlords is going to end up overburdening tenants. And there is no way you can get around that. What are you going to do with all of us? I may want to remind all of you that you're in the positions that you are in to represent us, not rule us.
My name is Dale Reeves. I live at 2542 Avenue B. I talked to Mr. Welch this morning. He sent me a printout of the proposals. How many of you read it? How many's got a printout of it? Wow. General welfare of the public as a whole, not as individuals. First paragraph, first section. All residential dwellings, not just you landlords. It's everybody. vendetta is correct. We don't need international regulations, ideals brought into our community, any way, shape, or form. Can't you do it? Can't something be done other than this? I'm really frustrated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Terry Bronick that lives at 2602 4th Avenue. I have a rental house, and when people ask, or my tenant asks me when there's something wrong, I fix it as soon as possible. It's not like that they're not getting anything done. You need to be looking at people that are not getting the stuff done. Look at them. Don't look at the good landlords. Look at the bad landlords. Go after them. Find them. Don't come after us. We're doing our job that we need to do. One other thing. I went down to the recycling center to dump off oil that I can do because I'm a resident here. On the outside of the building, what was wrong with it? There was a plug-in, outside plug-in without the cover being on it. Now, if you expect us to live by the standard, what you're trying to put us to, you guys need to live to the standard that you expect us to live to. It's on the recycling center where the oil is, on the outside of the door. How long that been like that, who knows? You guys need to be inspecting this building, them building, not just our buildings. And that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else speaking against?
My name is John Blue. I live at 3409 Avenue C. I don't have any rental property, so I don't have any skin in the game, so to speak. But I was born and raised in the west end of Council Bluffs. And I currently ran for Iowa House of Representatives. And in that time, I walked 214.7 miles knocking doors. And I talked to people who are hanging on there by the skin of their teeth. And these landlords here are providing them a place to live. And these people have to decide whether they have to make the decision whether they're going to buy groceries or pay for meds. Okay? I take care of their property. I have a small business, a lawn and landscape business. I give these people a break because they need the help. I don't get that out. but yeah, I help these people. And I got to talk to so many interesting and wonderful people. And they're on the edge. Like I say, they're on the edge. And if these landlords have to go through this 26 pages of, well, anyway, killing trees, they're not going to be able to go for it. You're going to put them out in the street. And I talked to them. Yeah, there's some properties around here that are eyesores. Most of them are empty already. Maybe perhaps these landlords could buy that property and improve it. I have a property down in my neighborhood that's a rental property. The house is, I imagine, is in good shape, but the yard's a junkyard. Perhaps maybe the landlord could talk to the tenant to get that junk out of there. But it's, when you talk about coming your personal residence, okay, my house is 115 years old. I know it wouldn't pass an inspection, you know, and you stay away. You won't get in my door unless you bring about 5 cops. But, you know, we work on it. It's a constant thing. We are constantly updating our home. And the landlords have the same thing that I have in it. I have to update my property. I have to keep it in code. And I think this is crazy. I think the thing worked great before. 20 years ago, I had rental property. I had to sell it to help take care of my mother. Isn't that terrible? But I just think that you guys need to think about this, because there's a lot more than just inspecting homes out there. There's people who are going to be kicked out in the street or public housing and that they can't afford it. I mean, walk the neighborhood. Go down there and walk through there and knock on them doors and talk to them people and see where they're at. Because the residents in the west end of Council Bluffs do not need this. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone speaking in favor?
No, I'm still on the other side. Deborah Peterson, 215 South Main Street, Council Bluffs, Iowa. Tonight I'm appearing on behalf of Selden Company, and I've contacted a couple other landlords too. While we would agree with everything that's been said from Ryan on down, a couple things that we want to point out. First of all, I think it would be important to let everybody know where this amended is going to be so that everybody can look at it, and I will certainly pass it on to my clients as well so that we can all have a chance. I think there was a lot of good work done here this afternoon, things that came up, but I think everybody needs to be aware of those. One of the things that the Selden Company noted, and Abby Teetsort, representative from the company, noted to you is the amended provisions that you have except the Section 8 HUD approvals. There are a number of other types of projects that are also annually inspected that are probably inspected to the same type of codes, and we can get that information for you. But we would like to probably ask that that be included as well. So if the Iowa Finance Authority, for instance, is inspecting one of our tax credit projects or a low income or a moderate income project, those inspections, we would like to have that requirement waived as well on that. So we'll look at that. I'll certainly look at the amendments and submit some information to you as well. I've listened to everybody talking tonight, and I'm not a math scholar, but for some reason the numbers that everybody is saying and the number of properties that are already registered, when you divide that by the number of inspections we're going to get done a year, we're not going to get them all inspected every 3 years. So then is the $35 or $34, is that going to then become $70 a year? Are we going to then increase that to $120 to keep up? Where does this fit? Is this program, and I haven't seen any numbers in the background, but I don't know. It doesn't look like off the top that the $15, the $35, the $34, whatever, is going to totally fund this. So is this just a start and we're going to have to reconsider this later? And certainly every landlord here tonight told you that cost is going to be passed on to the tenant, and that is where it's headed. I don't know for a fact that that was true, that someone said there's not an inspection fee in Omaha. We've fought and fought and fought for 30 years over here with the property taxes on the commercial properties and rentals. We're now getting that looked at and addressed to bring us more into the market with the Omaha developers. Let's not now do something that's going to damn those projects going forward by adding another fee on to the landlords that's therefore going to get passed on to the tenants. Also, and I didn't catch the date on this, I think maybe it was for next June, but certainly on the landlords need to be able to plan ahead. We got tax changes that'll come, so if you could delay any implementation, maybe 6 months to a year even, particularly on the larger projects. The other thing is if the larger projects are going to be exempted from the HUD or by a HUD or an IFA inspection or some other similar type state or federal agency, what is the possibility of waiving the fees for them, maybe fixing back to the registration level, but since they're not being inspected or wouldn't need to be inspected by your staff, does that figure into the math? And I haven't really had a chance to look at that, but I'll ask my client to run some numbers for you. But those are our comments. As it sits, we're not totally in favor of it. My client has not had a chance, as most of the people here today haven't had a chance to review your amendments, so we certainly would support your leaving the public hearing open and considering comments for the next 3 or 4 weeks or whenever your January hearing is. Thank you very much for your time and work today.
Thank you.
Mark Hansen, 110 High Clare. When Montesquieu created democracy, he kind of leaned towards it. One man should never be afraid of another man. Ronald Reagan kind of followed that up by saying there's nothing to fear more than someone from the government saying I'm from the government and here to help. I was looking through all the rules from the international, and I probably haven't caught up with all the amendments and such, but it looks like this is going to cover not only renters, but every other homeowner here in Council Bluffs. And the worst thing I could think of is just if a neighbor just doesn't like me for whatever reason, just to call up and get an inspection of my personal property that I'm fine with, that meets city codes, but because he called up and complained that he can come over and continually inspect and harass me. And I think there's plenty of other people in the, I'm sure you've heard numerous complaints at the mayor's office where one person complains about their neighbor. And that's the only only thing I see from this. From the negative, $700,000 is, what I've been quoted numerous times on this project. If we pull $700,000 out of the economy, are we hurting Council Bluffs or helping Council Bluffs? That $700,000 could be going to that student who just graduated and moved to town, said he's working on savings up and moving out of a rental property and saving up for a home. We're hurting Council Bluffs in the long run. The more we pull out of our free market economy and put into government, the more we're going to hurt ourselves. Thank you much.
Thank you. Okay, anyone here speaking in opposed? All right, well, that'll be a nice transition.
My name's Roger Goff. I used to be a deputy sheriff in Potawatomi County. I retired in 2010, and I put all my retirement into buying rental homes and trying to fix up the ones that I bought. Prior to retiring, I was the eviction officer for the sheriff's department. I've been in almost every one of these people's homes during evictions. I'd say most of the damages that I've ever seen in any of those homes were caused by tenants. And the ones that weren't caused by tenants, I informed the landlord that they needed to be repaired. And if I went to do an eviction there again and it wasn't repaired, I reported them to the city. And I think self-inspections, if people are honest, they're going to keep their properties pretty much in the condition they need to be. And I think through the officers that do evictions and the city inspectors that are out there now, they do a fine job. And get to public housing, I think you're going to, all these people go out of business. And we end up with public housing. Back in the late 80s, they come to the sheriff's department and the police department and ask deputies and Council Bluffs police officers how we're going to keep gangs out of this town. Well, there isn't gangs in this town. I mean, you got a few that claim they're gangbangers. But when the Minster Street Creps, or whatever they were called, came around, they got pushed out. There wasn't a foothold that they could build a gang unit or a gang out of it in this town. And I think if we start putting big housing places up and we start putting a whole bunch of kids in there that don't have any guidance in one unit, we're going to have a lot of problems. And I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Roger.
Patricia Murphy, 333 Willow Avenue. I just want to say that I don't know why this came up. I think the self-inspection is working fine. I bought my properties for retirement. It seems like one thing after another is cutting into it, and I think that it is going to put people out of business, and it is going to pass the. We have to pass the increases on to our tenants who can't afford it. I mean, it's hard enough now if you look at our properties and what we rent for compared to what they're renting for in Omaha. It's it is going to hurt the people at the lower level here. So I just want to say I think you ought to reconsider it and reconsider the self-inspection, and it's the money thing. It's too much.
Thank you.
You want to speak? You've been getting up several times. Ms. Ma'am?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are we on the?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
we'll get
I
there.
think we're getting there.
We're hoping to.
Okay.
I'm thinking Bruce is going to start it.
864 Mackenzie Avenue, Bruce Kelly. My daughter had a home. She moved out of it to help with my mother, rented it out. A year later, she was turned into the city. So she didn't know about the rental fee. She paid that up. Had cost her over $4,000 to fix the damage, just in material.
Her husband is a construction worker. So they had to go in and fix everything. 6 months before these people moved in, they had an inspection of the house with child protection or services and stuff like that to make sure the house was safe for children. It passed. The city came in, they worked with them. I don't know why we have to change all this around at this time. She couldn't be here. She's got 3 kids and my mother she takes care of. But I just wanted you to know that these homes, when they do, and when the city does get involved, it had to be probably with your services, help them go through this whole thing to fix it. And they fixed everything on it and was re-inspected, was told they could rent it back out. So you do have it in your power to do what you've been, just to enforce the laws that you have. I'm lucky, I got commercial property and that comes under a different deal, but just like my home that I have, it's 35 years old. I know the electrical isn't up to what it would have to be now, and if somebody came in and said, hey, you gotta change it, I can't afford it. I'm on a fixed income.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Teresa, I think you're up. Anyone speaking in favor?
She's ready.
Teresa Jacoby, 38 Gilman, Council Bluffs, Iowa. I was a landlord for 40 years and on the West End, and so what I'd like to say is that everybody in here and that everybody that left are the good landlords that do what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, and make sure that their tenants are taken care of. How many tenants are not, how many landlords are not here? And if those landlords that were not here would join the landlord association so they could make sure they knew the rules and followed the rules and were not going to say, go it on their own, hoping they won't get caught. I don't have much time to say this, but I want to know who's standing up for the tenants. Yes, there are bad tenants. And yes, you can't really know. But let me tell you, I live across from lots of rental property. And what happens is that the land, have we talked about out-of-state, landlords? And have we talked about landlords who drive up to the property, meet the tenant, the prospective tenant, don't do a thing but collect the money and give them the keys? Those are the people you need to go after, and there are a number of them in this community that do just that. They don't make an application, they don't make a lease, they don't say any expectations for the tenants. They just let people come in, take the money, and go. Those are the people that this ordinance is pointing at, not the good people that are all here. You wouldn't be here if you weren't good people, and this isn't going to affect you as good people. This is only going to affect the people who are not doing what they should do. And I guess I could say a lot of things, and usually do, but if I put my glasses on, I can read this. I bet you that all of you live in no place close.
Yeah, Teresa, can you speak to the microphone because they can't hear you?
Can't hear you.
Okay. Don't interrupt me. I don't know where I am.
We wanted to hear you.
Oh, did you? Okay. Well, anyway, it isn't you guys that have to worry. It's the people that are not doing their job, and they're not in here. So let's not worry about you folks and what it's going to cost, what it's going to do. And let's go after the people who have property managers who have a problem with doing what they're supposed to do. They manage so many properties, you don't care. You know what? I am in favor of this, and this guy has a timeline, and he's got to get it to the newspaper real soon. So I'm saying, go home, relax, you guys are all okay. Let's get the rest of the people on board.
Thank you. Anyone else speaking in favor? Kyle, name and address for the record.
Kyle Mushel, 332 Glen Avenue. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Fairmont Park Neighborhood Association. The concern of our organization and the folks who live in our neighborhood is focused on reforming a rental inspection program that does not work for the public, for the tenants, or for the landlords. The city should be minimally complying with the Iowa state law concerning rental housing, and the current passive rental inspection program does not comply. Self-inspection relies on landlords who knowingly or unknowingly violate the safety codes will turn themselves in. That is simply not the case, as registered rentals are cited for safety violations more often than owner-occupied properties. This city deserves better. Everyone deserves the minimum safety standards to protect public health and safety. The tenants deserve to be treated decently. Taxpayers deserve not to having to pay for constant public safety visits. Neighbors deserve to have their property and family rights respected. Landlords who follow the law deserve not to be undercut by those landlords who don't. Every business affecting public health or safety is licensed and actively inspected. This is the cost of doing business. Those on the other side of this debate trying to paint this reform as some type of Orwellian government overreach to impose complex and burdensome standards to tell people how to run their lives is quite frankly irresponsible. They are only concerned with maintaining the status quo, and the status quo is not working. We urge the council to pass ordinance 6224 for rental inspection reform.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor?
I'm gonna go fast because hopefully we can close this up. Justin James, I'm the Council Bluffs Fire Chief. And I look around, I see a lot of my friends and a lot of people that I've been around over the years, to be honest with you. And I just want to, from the fire department standpoint, my family's been in rental property basically since I was born. We own rental property all across the state. My brother owns probably 50 to 100 rentals right now. I saw one of my uncles outside here that owns a rental, and another uncle that owns them. So this is very personal to me too. I will tell you that just from a firefighter standpoint or fire safety standpoint, the current self-inspection is not working. It's not, and you don't have to clap. It's just, it's the last thing I want to see as fire chief is a bunch of landlords go out of business. Ultimately, that would only hurt city employees since we're paid out of property taxes. We want to do whatever it takes to make it work for both parties. And I think if you were here earlier, you saw some good compromise. A lot of the things that came up from the original committee that met have been put into this. And it's really almost not even fair to have this discussion without actually giving you guys some time to actually look through it and bring forward your next opinion. So it's just my recommendation that we move forward with the current amendments and you guys get an opportunity to come back and look at them rather than dragging this out because we could be here till midnight discussing. This is very complex stuff. I want to just kind of remind you though, from a fireman standpoint, that this is really the only industry in town that you can be in that you're not held to a code that's inspected by inspectors. Literally the only business you can be in. That has some concern to me, just because this is probably one of the most dangerous things that you can have an occupant of a building do, which is sleep there and live there. It becomes very dangerous. And I think in the past, 100 years, we maybe made a couple mistakes along the way. And we have rental properties that we do have issues with. And I agree, there's some codes out there that we have that we could go enforce, but I think many of you will agree that maybe there's some crazy stuff in those codes too. So I just encourage us to keep moving forward. I think we're going in the right direction with some amendments that were made, and I look forward to working with y'all, and I just hope that don't get disenfranchised by this ball rolling forward. I think I can speak for Steve. Steve and I talk all the time about our level of customer service and how we serve the citizens, and we're trying to do this the best way I think that Steve can. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Amy?
No clap.
I'll be brief. I'm Amy Rucker, and I'm at 420 Oakland Avenue, and I'm a member of the Council Bluffs Housing Trust Fund Board, and we're an all-volunteer board, and we also support this change. And I understand that there's some amendments that can be, worked out, and I appreciate that everybody's so willing to work together on this. But we really do feel that the self-inspections aren't working, and we'd like to see more attention to having an inspector. And we would also encourage everybody or remember that we do have a program for rehab that does provide low-interest loans and grants for these projects. So thank you very much, and good luck.
Anybody else speaking in favor? Anyone from the council?
Motion to continue the public hearing.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion?
Well, I guess, there's been a lot of comments on this from the get-go, and I know Councilmember White and Watson have put in a lot of hours working through these amendments. Yes, you can clap. Yes, that's a lot of work, and thank you very much. Some people feel that it's rushed through this process, and I just kind of wanted to speak on that for a minute. It's all ordinances go through 3 readings, and this one in particular has the advantage, given the holiday season, there are actually 3 weeks between the first setting the public hearing and the information out there. There will be another 3 weeks until the next reading. Again, it's a living document. There's been a lot of changes. We understand there's a lot of changes. It's not the most exciting reading, which is an understatement probably. So over the next 3 weeks, I would encourage everyone to read the last round of amendments, and don't panic, don't freak out. If we're not ready on the 3rd reading to pass it, then we just go 2 more weeks. So please don't worry about that. I don't think any of us up here are trying to rush this through. We want it done right, and we're soliciting comments from all sorts of folks, and speaking for myself, but probably for every one of us, we're open to phone calls, emails, meeting personally, and I think all of us have done that over the last few weeks. And I just appreciate everyone coming out here and being involved in this matter. I do support the ordinance. One other thing, this is not a new ordinance, and I think there's been some comments tonight. People seem to be confused. It's not a new ordinance. The ordinance has been on the books. What we're doing is we're merely taking an existing ordinance and tweaking it, trying to make it better, trying to make it reflect more of the reality of what's happening, and going from a passive to a proactive inspection program. So that's all I have, and we'll be here in 3 weeks. So.
And the reason I motioned to continue the hearing is there have been a lot of considerable changes. 95% of them roughly have been actually ones landlords have sought, and they're in their favor. I think that's really important for people to remember. These aren't, they're actually, some folks are complaining about the number of amendments, and they're the ones they sought. But just so that there's no reasonable chance of complaining to me giving you what you want, continuing the public hearing will allow you at the next meeting to speak for 10 minutes rather than just 5. And if that's what you want to do, I think that's fair to give it to you. So that's why I'm moving for that. So I think it ought to move forward. But I do think after you have a chance to look at the amendments many of you asked for, particularly in the room or who have left, I think you'll discover that you're getting quite a bit of what you want, and changes to the current law we've had since 1980. There are a lot of changes you wanted, and you're getting them.
And even though I'm not necessarily in favor of this ordinance, I do know that there has been a lot of work on everyone's part up here, working on it, especially with the landlords, and so I would like to continue this on and move forward with this to the public hearing, so it does give everyone a chance to read it over. Then let me know if this is something you are now comfortable with or not. I'm very open still to hearing your opposition if that's the case, but I'm hoping, because I do know a lot of your edits have been incorporated in here, but realize fully none of you have hardly seen this, so I'm gonna agree to move forward one more time, since we're keeping it open, only to allow everyone to really get a chance to read over this, and then let me know from there how you feel about it, so.
And I heard during the course of the comments this evening a number of references to the special committee, the ad hoc committee that was put together by the mayor, since we're taking the opportunity to extend the public hearing and to take more time to the process. I think it would be not just appropriate but very helpful to have that committee meet again to provide input as a body, so that we're not doing it on a piecemeal basis and then arguing and legislating totally from an individual standpoint during the study sessions. I think it would just make it a more collaborative process.
Two things I'd just say. One, that offer's always been on the table. Nobody contacted me wanting to do that. Gene Edwards really dug in and worked hard. So in addition to these two people, I want to say Gene was right there the whole way and fought for her ideas and had good ones. Didn't have to fight very hard because I think she had some good ideas. Just want to tell Megan, the reason I don't call back Megan, I don't get a vote. So it's a little awkward for me to say, well, Al's thinking this and Nate's thinking this, and because it's not my role. I don't vote on issues anymore. And if you've been around for 18 years, I got an opinion all the time. So it's a little tough for me to sit and bite my lip, but that's my new role. So.
Yeah, I'm in favor of leaving the public hearing open. I know that a lot of people didn't get an opportunity to look at some of the amendments or were not at the study session today. I can tell you that I've worked on this for a long time. I put a lot of hours into it trying to make it as fair as possible. I think that in reading a lot of my emails that I received, there's a lot of misconceptions about what we're doing. So I want the opportunity to be out there for people to understand that the the International Property Maintenance Code is already on the books. Every landlord is required to abide by it right now. There has been no change to that until the amendments that we'll be making this evening. Nothing has changed. The only thing that would change is who's doing the inspections. So a lot of the emails I'm getting really are in regards to people's concerns about that property maintenance code. However, the self-inspections are already being completed to that code. That code is not new. That has been on the books. So I want there to be an opportunity for everybody to understand what the actions that the council are looking to take has to do with the inspections and to reduce some of the onerous parts of the IPMC by making those changes. So there's going to be copies out there. We've provided a lot of those copies today, made some more changes, and I think we need everybody to have an opportunity to come back and discuss this and have a chance to speak to it at the next meeting.
And then one other thing that's a misnomer, and I heard it several times today, the gentleman who said that I emailed him the new ordinance, when he told me I use language I shouldn't have used, but it has nothing to do with Agenda 21 in Copenhagen. It's just called the International Building Code. There's two codes in the United States. One's the International Building Code, the other one's the Universal Building Code or something like that. And it has nothing to do with the United Nations legislating policy from Stockholm. It's just what they called it, and it's been around for probably 70, 80 years, long before anyone got worried about the United Nations legislating Stockholm policy on the United States. So it's just a name.
If I may, the International Code came out in 1928. There was still the League of Nations. The United Nations didn't happen after World War II. And the other point is it's international in America. Good or bad, we tend to call a lot of things international world. But for two teams from Canada who really don't have anyone attend their baseball games, the World Series, that's not true. We make it sound big. It's international because code inspectors across the United States, and we let some in from Canada, which I don't think is quite North Korea, come up with some codes about what's working across the country. It's not the UN, it's not North Korea, it's not Sweden. It's international, like it's as international as the World Series is. If you want an international sport, it'd be the World Cup, but we don't call it that here. So see, we like to pick the names that don't always fit. So I don't want people to be under an impression that somehow the UN's telling us what to do. Far from it.
Well, and just very quickly, the other thing I forgot to bring up, and it was mentioned a few times tonight, and in emails that I've received, we're not taking this as a license and an authorization to come knocking on your door and burst through and inspect your property. So I'm not really sure where those comments are coming from, but it's not true. Steve, you don't have any plans to do that, I would think. Not today. That's probably not the best, most clear answer. But I mean, it's not. It's people are afraid. They're scared, and if that's what you've been told by I don't know who, it's not true. We're not going to come knocking on your door and throw you from your homes, and you've got a leaky faucet. Get out. That's not the purpose. Seriously, it's not the purpose.
So take time, read it, call with questions. It really has been greatly amended based on input from multiple landlords, but most especially from Jean Edwards. So thank her for that effort. She is on the ad hoc committee. And the motion on the table is to extend the public hearing until January 12th. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Both same sign.
Motion to move ordinance to third reading.
Second.
Is that the ordinance as amended?
Yes. Yes, as amended, as I will say. If you want me to say it now, or as opposed to saying we incorporate the one discussed and the one I hand to the clerk.
As amended with today's date, not amended to the 24th.
Proper procedures make the motion to move or pass the third.
Okay.
When we come back
Okay.
for the amending motion.
Thank
Very
you.
good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion.
There are a lot of things, and I don't want to stay here forever, but there's some things that really, I just want people, particularly, and it's no fault of the newspaper, there's only so many words you can fit into it, and there are a lot of things here that I just can't let go, because there's some misconceptions here. First of all, there is a state law. It's been on the books since 1980. Now, a lot of that says we have to have a rental inspection program, and as I read it, I do believe certification doesn't mean self-certification, or the legislature would have said that. They say it in other statutes. And when it comes to signatures on a document, that's because you yourself are drafting or adopting that document. You don't inspect yourself. You write your own signature. Those are two different things. They actually prove my point. Now, there's been a lot of talk about the state versus the federal government. We don't control the federal government, surely, and we don't control the state either. If you don't like that law, I'm afraid you got to get the legislature and the governor to change it. That the national government's one of limited powers. The state isn't. I mean, if you want to look at American history, the state has as much power, but that it's given away through the federal constitution or its own. It's not a government of limited, and one of its powers is to protect the public health and safety, sometimes called the police power if you want to talk in legalese. That has been around since the country started, and it's particularly been used in housing reform since right after the Civil War. This is hardly a new idea. And again, right now when landlords self-certify, if there can be, I put that in quotes because I don't know how you can do that, you are already saying you're following all these laws you say you don't like and are impossible to follow. Those both can't be true. The system can't be working fabulously, but if we actually enforce it, everybody's going to go out of business. Those can't both be true. Now, am I accusing everybody of being liars? No. I'm just saying that they both can't be true. Now, I think the fact remains, and some folks have been very bluntly honest with me as I've talked, and I've worked a lot with Council Member White, over 100 hours the last 3 weeks talking primarily to landlords, but also tenants and neighborhoods. And a lot of these changes, again, that folks are complaining about being thrown on them are the ones they asked for, so I'm a little confused. You know, it somewhat feels like there was this expectation that I'd be unreasonable and wouldn't agree to their reasonable changes, but since I unexpectedly did, I get criticized for doing what they want. And I mean, you got to pick. You can't have your cake and eat it too. The fact is currently there are a lot of things on the books that don't make sense. We talked a lot about them this afternoon. A lot of them came from landlords. A lot of folks who got up and criticized this whole process got every single thing they wanted changed in this draft. Every single thing they named, which can only lead me to believe that they never supported change at all to begin with, and I spent dozens of hours with some folks for nothing. Now, so there are at times tonight where I showed my frustration, and I tried very hard not to do that, and I apologize if anyone was offended. But my frustration was when people that I was working in good faith with to make all the changes they wanted now suddenly come and twist my words and use against me the idea that all this extra words, well, that's what they wanted. And I want folks to know the truth, that a lot of what people wanted, they got. And some people were quite frank with me privately, and unlike other folks who've named names because it was privately, I'm going to keep my word and not name them. But they said, you know what, it may have been on the book since 1980, but we don't follow it. Keep doing that. Are you comfortable with that, having laws on the book? I asked the residents of Council Bluffs, all the residents of Council Bluffs, particularly the taxpayers, are you comfortable with the law that we really don't follow? Or we don't follow as it's written, wink, wink. Let's keep doing that. You know, a lot of folks who want limited government and government to work for the people, I agree with you, but when you write laws that you don't follow, that ain't it. That's not good government. That's special interest deals, and I'm not ever going to be in favor of that kind of thing. Now, just a few other things. There's been a lot of talk about that the current code could take care of a lot of these things. Yes, it could, if we had the money to hire all the inspectors. Now, yes, it's true there has been a surplus in the budget, and yes, as part of these reforms, one of the things the landlords have asked for is that the money...
Yeah.
That the money that comes into this program only supports this program, not the general budget, not the general revenues, and not owner-occupied inspections. I happen to agree with that. I've told anyone who will listen. And this does that, by the way. But it's got to pay for itself. It's not fair to ask the taxpayers, the general taxpayers of this city, to subsidize any business. This has got to be a revenue-neutral regulation. So if you tell me it works perfectly fine, but gosh, 4 people won't do it, I'm not sure how then you say one person does it, if 4 won't. We kept that down. We lowered the increase. The average fee in the metro area is $56.20. I believe I'm pretty close. I may be off by a few cents per year. We started at 50. We had them go back and look. We thought that was too big an increase. We got rid of everything we could in the program and still make it minimally functional. It's down to 35. 56 versus 35. That's hardly us really going overboard. And, you know, we've talked about reforms for years. And speaking for myself, I've talked about it for years. In fact, it was one of the things I ran on, and I happened to win. So, you know, I don't think anyone was in any illusion as to my belief in the public safety for the support of neighborhoods. If you did, you weren't really listening to what I was saying, with all due respect. So I believe I have a mandate for my view. I haven't changed it. I'm doing what I said I'd do. That's what folks want to see, and sometimes I think we don't want what we say we do. Just a couple other things. Most landlords are good. Yes, the problem is, and lawyers would be out of business too if everybody just did what was right and nobody committed crimes, and the people who follow the law are the ones who get punished the most. That's true. I can't change that. I can't write a law that says, I don't like you, Mr. or Ms. So-and-so, because I think you're a bad landlord, so I'm only going to go after you. If you think about that, what if that's you that I don't like? That's not constitutional. I've got to have a law that applies to everybody equally and does what it says. and applies. And if somebody's not following it, they're the one who's going to get in trouble. There are a lot of folks, by best estimates, about 1/5 to 1/4 of the rentals in this town are undercutting you good landlords because they're not registering. They're undercutting you. And most of the problems, I readily admit, come from them. And our current program can't do anything about that because it won't afford it. Even if we used every penny in the budget, we don't have enough people to do it. So, and if you want us to enforce the current law, we can take out all of these changes that, again, we've worked over 100 hours on, that you said you wanted. If you want us to enforce what you're already self-certifying that you're following, we can take out all those exceptions. And just briefly, this is the last thing I'll say tonight. What are some of the things that landlords asked for that we agreed with? That the current code, they're swearing that they're following. Let's see what we changed. And let's see if this is government overreach. We have a standard default penalty for a violation of any city ordinance. We used to say go see it in another section, which is what lawyers call incorporation by reference. That's not English. We put it right in this chapter so you don't have to look somewhere else. So it's not a trap for the unwary. That's hardly overreach. It's the same standard we have for every other law in the city. On windows, right now it says you have a hairline crack in your window, you have to replace the glass, or the code calls it the glazing. We change it so that only if it's letting in elements like rain, wind, and we also change it. Right now it says every window you've got in the place, they've all got to function. I have an older house. I imagine I haven't re-roped all mine. I doubt all of them completely function. Is that minimal safety? No. You're swearing you're doing it now, by the way. We change it to having only one bedroom, one window in each bedroom's got to open so that you can have ventilation. And you know what? So the firemen and women can get in to save you. So all 8 windows in the old house living room don't have to open. Now only one does. So that's actually better if you're following the current code than what you have to do now. Right now, if somebody scuffs the wall inside, you technically have to repaint it. We change it to normal wear and tear accepted. I think that's something many folks asked for. On rubbish, my colleague, Councilman Ringenberg had a good point about rubbish and about how it ought to not be any rubbish in the house gets you in trouble. It's got to be at a significant amount. That seems fair, and that's hardly government overreach. Section 8 is a completely different purpose than the minimum housing standards under the Iowa state law, which we all swore an oath to follow, whether we like that law or not. HUD is really meant, if you go back to the congressional reports and see the meanings for Section 8, why they passed it, Congress passes all these things, the courts can look at them to discern intent if there's any question as to what a section means or what the law overall means. It was meant to help folks who are in a position in their lives, and I'm not making fun of anybody, they're in a position of their lives where usually, the vast majority of time, for circumstances out of their control, they need a lot of assistance with a lot of things most people don't. So the HUD standards include a lot of things that you really want everybody who rents in town to have to follow. Like, should I come in and presume you don't know how to use the burners on your stove? Or make sure that you know how to open the refrigerator? I mean, HUD has all these extra standards, and they're more subjective. They say things like, it's got to be satisfactory. Well, if you look at the guidance, which is a couple 100 pages long, if the tenant says it isn't, it's not. It's up to the tenant to decide whether. Do you really want it to say that? Be careful what you wish for. So to add all those is an insult to everybody who rents to say everybody needs that extra help in learning how to open the refrigerator. Do you really want us to inspect for that? Because that's the code you're asking for, some folks. You've asked for a hierarchy list, which is a list of priorities. Generally speaking, what are the things that are most likely need to be fixed first, so that are going to cause me, the most concern with the housing inspector, now that it's actually going to be enforced? You're going to get that. We mandate that be required. That's only fair. Actually, the one that's been come up by city staff was put together jointly with landlords, and I'm sure that there could be more input to that if you haven't been a part of that process already. And I won't mention everything, but there are a lot of other things that get taken out. One of the key points that gets added is a lot of people have said for years, and I completely agree with the landlords and other folks who say this, particularly landlords, they say, you know what, if the place I'm renting let's take a single family house. I'm renting it to a family, it passed the pest elimination, it doesn't have bugs in it. And they've been there 6 months and they have bugs. The current code, which again you're swearing you're following, says that it's always your responsibility. Even if, in that case, we know the tenant did it, right? So you asked us to hold the tenant liable for the things that the tenant does, which makes complete sense. A lot of times we talk about rights, but one of the things we've got to remember, particularly from a conservative government point of view, is rights come with responsibilities, too. And I think a lot of times today we forget that side of the equation. And it holds the tenants liable, not you, for a lot of things that are in their control. Now, a lot of people have asked for that. Some folks have then, not many, but some, have then apparently told their tenants, that's what they tell me when I call them after I get a fairly similar form type email, scared to death that we're going to come in if they've got to work the swing shift and we can't inspect that day. We're going to break down the door or come to their place of employment and arrest them. I mean, that's shameful to people saying that. And I have to say, probably with only one exception, the people that I know are doing this are the people who are most in favor of holding the tenants liable, at least as they talk to me. I can only speak to what people say to me directly, to swear to it, so to speak. And so it's disingenuous to go after and say, you know what, the government's going after you now, when that's what you wanted to do, and furthermore, it's the right thing to do. That's just not right. I mean, however this comes out, let's have it be a discussion of the merits, just like hundreds of hours trying to fix things. Could other things be fixed? I've asked people. I haven't gotten any more things. Could other things be fixed? Tell me. Like I said at the last meeting, and I've kept my word. One final thing I'll mention this evening is there was some concern, which I appreciate. Not everything I write can be perfectly clear the first time. I get it. I wrote it. Just like anything else, sometimes you miss stuff. I tried to make clear the section that's already in there, and it's in any law worth its salt, savings clause. What that means in English is this law just affects the things it talks about. In this case, it's the housing code. It doesn't affect the police's ability to enforce, the police's ability to enforce the criminal code. It doesn't affect the ability of the fire department to come in to fight a fire. It's a defensive statute. All it says is, look, otherwise, if I don't put that in there, you come in, serve a criminal warrant on me. I have an argument, silly, but I have an argument. Well, it's not in the housing code to get in my house. You can't come in to serve this one, even though I have an active drug operation that you can see from the door. You know what? That doesn't make sense. So I've changed the wording because some people thought it would suddenly empowering the city council to come into your house uninvited, I guess, some folks have said, and start enforcing laws that we thought to enforce. It never meant that. Some folks have been scared into believing that. The language is made clear. Again, we have bent over backwards to make every change possible, and for the folks who are against it, I get it. Some people are against it on principle. I respect that. But folks who have truly tried to work with me or us to make it better, I'm really disappointed that you use that against the process. I can take it against me personally, that's fine, I agreed to sit up here, but against the process and all the people who worked on this and all the people in town we're supposed to be working for. I don't forget who we work for. One of the things that the taxpayers have to pay for increased safety calls, those are very expensive. We bring the ambulance, bring the fire truck, the police to areas that claim they're certified and their problems. Tenants, the law may say they can't be retaliated against if they complain, but I know how the real world works, and so do you. Bad landlords if they're not going to follow the housing code, they're not going to follow that. So long story short, keep talking to us, but the idea we're trying to ram this down or do something you don't want, it just isn't accurate. And I wish we'd at least be frank and honest about it. We need this.
All right, the motion is to pass the third.
Have we had all the discussion on this, or?
Yeah, go ahead if you got more to add to it.
I just want to be clear why I think that this process needs considerably more work and why this ordinance is not ready for prime time. The focus set on the outset was on health and safety standards. And we have baseline health and safety standards already applicable to Section 8 housing that have been used for 3 decades without significant incident. The concern I hear tonight is that it's not that we don't have enough laws and authority on the books to support that health and safety. It's that, well, I'm missaying that. It's not that we don't have enough laws. The real problem is that we have too many. Because what I'm hearing here tonight is that folks are surprised. They've been surprised by hearing what standards are applicable to housing and rental inspections in this community. They're hearing this for the first time, and they're hearing the standards that apply to them have been written by people off in another community across the country who aren't responsible to either you or us. The standards that have been written go far beyond just the 21, 25 pages that we've been working on here this evening. Those standards go on for hundreds of pages, and people out there don't know what's in those standards, and you're going to have a difficult time finding them. Because if you Google those international code standards, you'll be told that you need to purchase them. So I think that's really what is frightening folks when there have been standards that have been successfully used here for 3 decades, and now we're adding to them in order to apply some sort of additional measure of health and safety. Well, I've yet to see anything in this code revision that improves the ability that goes to any improvement in health and safety. It does not do anything more that we don't already have in existing code, except apply more authority and additional rules. And I think that's what has people concerned. But you know, these are not minor tweaks that we've been making here tonight. We've had major revisions that we took up 3 weeks ago. We had major revisions that we spent several hours working through this afternoon. I've heard numerous folks saying that they have concerns about those revisions and want to see further revisions. These are pretty significant changes to a complex interlocking set of regulatory and legal guidance. So I'm going to try and wrap this up early by just pointing out that, you know, we are next door to the city of Omaha, a very sizable rental market. We are already under some disability because of our business tax structure in this state, and now we're going to add on additional costs of compliance. And we're going to not only risk losing landlords, but we're going to end up losing some of our city's most vulnerable individuals. And I guess that brings me back to conclude with what Mr. Kuntz was talking about tonight. That what we're really doing here is we're placing additional burdens that will end up costing our most vulnerable in this city. And until we take a close look to make sure that we are doing our best to ensure that those health and safety standards are enforced without applying additional levels of regulation that have nothing to do with health and safety, then we only complicate and add to that risk. I think we need to take a careful look here at what we're trying to do. And so for that reason, I continue to remain in opposition to this ordinance until we make sure that it meets the concerns of everyone involved.
I just have a couple of things. One, I know I gotten a lot of emails wanting us to use the HQS, which is the HUD Section 8 standards if we were going to do something. And I can tell you that I could have gone along with that just fine, because in many cases it was extremely more restrictive than the International Property Maintenance Code. And I know that some don't believe that, but I actually read the handbook that goes with it, the chapter 10 that goes with it, that you can't use this inspection program without. But I would like those that don't believe that to please read all of it, not just the inspection form that's used, but the codes that go with it, and give me some feedback. Because if I were to turn about face right now and accept that, I believe in my heart I am hurting the landlords more than I'm helping them, because I could have gone along with that. It's very, very strict. So read them, not just the inspection form, but please read all of it and get back to me. Second of all, we could stop this process right now. We could not do these amendments, and we could do what you're asking. We could enforce what's on the books now, which is the full International Property Maintenance Code with basements being plumbed. We can go in and we can spot check, and those fees could still be raised to cover that without making any of the changes you've asked for. So what I want you to do is let me know if that is an option. I'd like you all to email me which of these options you'd like. Would you like us to continue on once you've read the amendments that we're proposing that I believe is going to make your job easier and make it clearer? Please read those. Let me know if you think that's the direction you'd like to go. But here's the thing. I can't do all of them. You know, it's got to be something. And so if it's leaving it the same and fully enforcing the International Property Maintenance Code, I assure you, you will all be back in here not happy with that once that starts. It can't be done with the fees that are being charged now, so we would still have to consider a fee increase. At least that with what we're trying to do now, we're trying to address the biggest concerns that have been brought to me, and to Nate, and to Lynn, and to Mr. Ringenberg. The last thing I guess I would say is that there is I heard it several times tonight, and I'm really disappointed. A lot of the emails said that too. I've gotten these emails that have accused me and us of trying to run low-income people out of town. I'm not sure exactly where that's coming from, and what we're trying to do is provide safe and healthy housing for people of all income levels. How to accuse us then of trying to run low income out of town. The increase, and I understand when you're on a tight budget that, you know, a little bit of money makes a really big difference, but what we're really talking about here is about $1.50, a little over $1.50 a month to implement, that would have to be passed on to the tenant. If the landlord only passes on the true and actual fee, it'd be about $1.50 a month. So I don't think, and I could be wrong, and there may be housing, you know, experts that work with these people that could tell me I'm wrong, but I don't believe that $1.66 shows intent on my part to run low-income people out of town. I think it's one of those things that people do when they don't agree with you. They try to find that one thing that's going to make you look bad or feel bad, and that's to call you a bigot or to call you biased against a group of people. It actually couldn't be further from the truth. I'm looking for safe and healthy housing for people, and I've tried to work with each and every person who is willing to work with constructive ideas. I've met with them, and never have I ever indicated to anybody that that was my intent. And so I hope that we can move forward without being so personal and attacking a character, when what we're really talking about is an ordinance, not a personal character of any one of us. We're trying to make things better. Let me know. Look those things over. I'd really appreciate your feedback as to which of those options you truly feel are going to be the best options. Thank you.
I have a question for clarification. So the Matt or Marcy, what we're going to be voting on here is the ordinance as amended tonight, not as amended on 11/24. Is that correct?
Yes, the one we, oh, I'm sorry. You asked her, forgive me.
Yes. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Concerns? Motion is to move to third consideration.
Third reading, yeah.
On the amendment.
On the one as amended, yes, that I will hand it to
Dated
the
today.
clerk.
Okay, so we've got a motion and a second to push to third consideration.
Yes.
Now we need a motion to amend that ordinance prior to voting.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so do we want to vote on the moving it to third before we?
I think you gotta make.
No, we go to the amendment.
Okay.
I amend to substitute, an amendment in the nature of a substitute, the ordinance, the draft ordinance as presented and as passed at first reading, is presented at this second reading. I move to amend and substitute with the attached document we discussed this afternoon, which I will hand to the clerk.
Second.
Discussion.
And how soon that will be available? To optimize the amount of time that the people can digest that, read that, how soon will that be available?
I can post it online tomorrow morning.
Perfect. That would
Where
be
you
great.
find the agendas and.
That'd be great.
That would be great.
So that's at the Council Bluffs website, and go under the subtitle agendas. And find it there.
And it will be available in Steve's office as well.
And but for one change, which I'll correct after I leave here, the one online that a lot of folks have looked at and commented on last night, just for one minor change, is the exact same thing. So you can look on Facebook as well, which I think a lot of people do, based on the traffic.
That it?
Was there a second on that?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, Madam Clerk, we are on the resolutions.
Resolution 14-317.
Oh, I'm sorry, do we have to vote on the main?
Yes, now you
I'm sorry.
passed the amendment, now we need to pass the ordinance as amended to third consideration.
Is there a motion?
So,
Second?
And then,
Discussion.
No,
Oh, this is the third one we voted on.
it's getting
All
confusing.
those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Nay?
can we take just a little break and let people clear the room before we try to start again? Alrighty,
Okay,
All right, I'm
All
finished.
right.
let's go.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Resolution 14-317, authorizing the acquisition of 3149 West Broadway.
motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion?
Nope.
Please no.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Resolution 14-318, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a development agreement between the city of Council Bluffs and Major Realty LLC for the use of economic development incentives for the renovation of 148 West Broadway.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion.
What is going in there?
Brian,
Commercial?
you want- or, I don't know if,
We're gonna put, commercial.
Can you-
Oh, I'm sorry.
and then name and
I
address,
wasn't expecting to.
name and address for the record.
My name's Brian Roten, 210 Delmar Circle, Council Bluffs. We're gonna develop it historically. There's gonna be a salon in the bottom, commercial, then there's gonna be 2 apartments on the top floor, and there's gonna be apparently some new landlord resident law here in the town that we're gonna have to follow, but we're not gonna comment about that.
You said that with a straight face too. Very, very good.
Any other discussion?
I'm just really happy to see more development and somebody willing to put their own funds, a considerable amount of money, into helping make our traditional downtown even better. And so I commend you and your wife for this.
Ditto. Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? All those in favor, we got a motion or anything here? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Still laughing at Brian's comment. Opposed, same sign.
Resolution 14-319, authorizing the mayor to execute. Oh, that's not right. We revised resolution similar to the organizational and other related documents for a new Iowa limited liability company with the Potawatomi County Development Corporation associated with the redevelopment of 117 Pearl Street.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Resolution 14-320, authorizing a joint application to the Iowa Economic Development Authority by the City of Council Bluffs and XLT Incorporated for benefits under the High Quality Jobs Program including local property tax abatement incentives, and to recognize the financial assistance award presented by the Iowa Economic Development Authority on November 21st, 2014, and setting a public hearing for February 9th, 2015 at 7 p.m. on a development agreement regarding TIF assistance for XLT Incorporated.
Move the resolution, set public hearing for 7 p.m. February 9th, 2015.
Second.
Discussion.
So we're doing D separate from D1?
Are we?
All is one.
We're doing it all as one. Well, doing it all as one, I'll have to abstain, so.
Any other discussion?
I do support TIF for this project. My only concern was the height. Everything else I've supported. I just want to make that clear.
Further discussion. Roll call.
Ed.
Aye.
Ringenberg.
Aye.
Watson.
Aye.
White.
Abstain?
Brannigan.
Aye.
Resolution 14-321, approving the Waterworks Board of Trustees 2015 calendar year budget.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
I think we have Mr. Drummy here, and there was some discussion of letting him have a chance to speak to the people directly.
Well, and he waited this long.
Yeah, and he did wait this long, and you would rightfully be just a little upset if we didn't.
Thank you, Mayor and Councilman. And my name is Doug Drummy, General Manager of the Council Bluffs Waterworks, representing the Board of Waterworks Trustees, 2000 North 25th Street, Council Bluffs, Iowa. Chapter 384.2 of the Code of Iowa requires the City Council to approve the Council Bluffs Waterworks budget by resolution. On November 18th, 2014, the Board of Waterworks Trustees held a public hearing and adopted their calendar year 2015 budget, which begins on January 1st, 2015. I do want to clarify for everybody that's listening in at this late hour that the Board of Trustees did approve the a rate increase on November 18th, and the council is not responsible for approving that rate increase, that it is the responsibility of the Board of Waterworks Trustees. So I don't want there to be any misunderstanding that the council's action tonight is not to approve the rate increase. That has been published in the paper, and it is effective on January 1st, 2015. The rate increase is a 6% across the board increase, and it is due to increased operating expenses and the need to maintain our unrestricted reserves at least at a 3 months level of our operating expenses and also capital improvements and debt service. I might just also make some comments about some of the ongoing challenges of the Board of Trustees and the Waterworks, and the biggest thing that we have long-term is the water main replacement. That's going to go on for a very long time. The water system began in 1881. We have water mains in service today that date back to 1881. It's very costly to replace water mains when we're talking about as much as $200 to $300 a foot. So when we talk about 300 miles of water main replacement at $200 a foot, it can add up to some very large numbers. So we need to be proactive in doing it over time and not waiting for everything to fall apart, and then we have a bigger price tag. We also have very many regulatory challenges, and we have one very large challenge that dates back now for 12 years that the DNR, the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, has issued us what is called a National Pollution Discharge Elimination Systems permit that would require us to remove all our discharges that from our North 25th Street water treatment plant that is a lime softening plant that has been in service since 1952. We believe this is inherently unfair that other states have permitted their larger water treatment plants across the river and upstream from ours to discharge when they're as much as 10 times larger than our water plant. Also, that applies to Omaha, Kansas City, St. Louis. They all discharge the same, what we call lime solids back to the river, which are really constituents that we remove from the river in the first place. The price tag of this will come at about $30 million, and we've been resisting this regulation very strenuously for a number of years now. We got to the point now that we have appealed the permit that has been issued to us by the DNR, and we have a hearing on March 5th, and I will thank the legislative representative, and there has been council members and the mayor that has been very supportive as we've interacted with the DNR and the director of the DNR, trying to bring some common sense to this process, which we still believe that there's hope that that can still happen, but we need everybody to understand that this is going to be a major cost to all of us, and we do not believe that it is warranted, and based on the fact that other states have permitted it, we believe that we should have the same resolution that those states have had. I'm certainly open to answer any of your questions that you may have.
You mentioned this afternoon the cost, the average cost of a gallon of water delivered right to any tap in your house by the city, and it's safe to drink. How much is that?
You know what? I misstated that.
Did you?
I did.
Oh.
You know, I misstated it by a magnitude of 10.
Oh.
It's actually less than a half a cent per gallon.
I see.
Yes, so that's what we deliver water to our customers for. Is about 4.5 cents a gallon, or 4/10 of a cent per gallon. So, excuse me.
A little cheaper than bottled.
It is much cheaper, yes. We deliver to the door, and we do take a lot of pride in the service that, and I think that we all recognize the importance of having a first-class water system. First-class water system is the underpinning of economic development for everything that goes on. If we don't have a first-class water system, then, you know, we're not going to be able to attract the businesses that we want to be able to attract.
Wasn't one of the other things the reason why revenue had been down somewhat because it was a cool year and a wet year, and then didn't we lose something like 2.5% of the water use when Griffin shut down?
Yeah, Griffin
unexpectedly.
Griffin Pipe historically has been one of our top 3 water users in the community, and so that did result in about a 2.5% decrease in revenue. You're correct that we had a very wet late spring, June. July was quite cool. August then came in wet. Early September was wet, and that's when our water sales are going to be at the greatest. And I do want to emphasize too is that we're not supported in any way by tax revenues. Everything that we do is through water sales and the revenue that we generate through those water sales.
You're being very prudent you're keeping very prudent reserves, and you're doing all you can, I think, to keep costs increases into what they have to be. We've got, otherwise we're not going to have water going to the taps. So I think you have a very difficult job that I hope all the employees of the waterworks know how very much in the city we appreciate what they do. A difficult job. I see a lot, you know, especially when they're replacing water mains, you know, 3 in the morning in February. And I just don't think they get the credit they deserve sometimes. And if you pass that along from...
I shall do that, and I appreciate that, Nate, and that's part of the replacement of the water mains. When we have a failure on Christmas Eve night and we put blocks of customers out of water because the infrastructure is becoming decayed, and you know, we need to make that investment so that doesn't occur, but the employees will certainly appreciate your recognition of that, Nate. Thank you.
And thank you again for staying the course here tonight and bringing this information, because I wanted to make sure that folks at home understood the level of magnitude of challenge that you're brought under, particularly by some regulatory overreach that really not only puts you at risk, but puts the entire community at a level of risk for something, again, that the city of Omaha does not have to face, but you do, and so do the people that end up paying for the service. So I thank you for leading the fight to try and hold that at bay as best as you can, and for being prudent in your business practices to, as Nate said, hold that reserve and keep things together just in case, because the regulators can be cut loose at any time.
I will certainly pass that on to the board, and we hope we prevail in our interaction with DNR, and we think that you know, we'll keep after it until we hopefully get the right answer out of this.
Well, and then the folks at home, you mentioned the 6% increase, and so that equates to those households at $1.35 a month, $16.20 per year, if I wrote down things correctly from this afternoon. So at $1.35 monthly bill increase.
That is correct, and that's for purchase of 65,000 gallons of water for our average customer. So that's $16.27 per year. So your number is correct. And then we have many of our customers, about 25% are what we call minimum bill customers, and their increase would be $8.22 over a year, so it would only be like 68, 69 cents a month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion by the council? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 14-322, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to sign an agreement with Nebraska Furniture Mart for carpet at the Mid-America Center.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
So there were no, I was kind of curious, there were no Council Bluffs businesses that, carpet businesses that, hello, you stayed with us as
As
well.
I said, he's made it through the
Excellent.
whole thing.
Okay, then it's good I have a question, you can
All right,
speak.
all
So no Council Bluffs businesses, I know there's a couple of carpet places in town, they chose not to bid or?
Right. Mark Vacanti, Mid-America Center, 1 Arena Boulevard. Yeah, they were definitely, we had 6 bidders that were out there, and 2 of the local Council Bluffs bidders decided to not put in a bid for this event, or for this project. The Nebraska Furniture Mart is using Allen's Carpet for installation
Okay.
on this,
Oh,
who is a
good.
Council Bluffs
Okay, perfect.
company.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other discussion?
Nice carpet.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
You got
Thanks.
carpet. It was worth the wait.
It'll be tough to see a stain on this, which I'm really envious of, quite frankly.
Resolution 14-323, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with HGM Associates Incorporated for engineering services in connection with levy certification project structural MR2.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 14-324, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with Judd's Brothers Construction for the Mosquito Creek South Sewer Relocation Project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 14-325, rejecting all bids for the North 28th Street Storm Sewer Rehab Project. Phase
Motion to
1.
approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Resolution 14-326, authorizing the city clerk to certify the weed assessments. And Resolution 14-327, authorizing the city clerk to certify the solid waste nuisance assessments to the Potawatomi County Treasurer to be collected in the same manner as a property tax.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Applications for permits and cancellation 7A and B.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Any requests from citizens to be heard?
Did we need to,
Under other business.
to act on the?
Yeah, I got it written down.
Okay.
But it's under other business after
I
citizens
forget what it
request,
was,
correct?
but-
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how I am.
I forget what it was, but I knew we were
None
supposed to do
received.
something.
Yes.
I wrote it down.
Other business is
Oh,
approval for the
okay.
violation
Yeah,
fee.
Are we on other business?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Anybody from the audience like to address the council? All right.
Motion, I make a motion to accept the $300 penalty
Only one that could get up and speak's Ben, and we're.
paid by Eddie's,
Someone's trying to get off work. He doesn't want to speak. We'll keep him overtime otherwise.
by Eddie's, $300 fine.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. We're adjourned.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Tomorrow, happy
Happy New
Hanukkah.
Year.
At Council Plus Savings Bank, you still get personalized customer service.
We have identity safe checking with LifeLock, identity theft protection.
You get personal mortgage lending to fit your needs now and in the future.
You get business banking with the latest technology because saving you time saves you money.
At Council Bluffs Savings Bank, you get people who answer when you call and local employees who are actively involved in our community. Council Bluffs Savings Bank, hometown banking the way it used to be.